Chapter 282. Hunting Island number 13 was a steel island. The entire island was built with a large amount of steel in the sea. Of course, a man-made island was naturally not as big as Emosher's Hunting Island number 1. At the center of the island was the entrance to Hunting Ground number 13. On the entire continent, there were very few people who had reached the level of a desolate hunter. Not to mention those who could reach the level of a level 3 desolate hunter or above, which was even rarer. Therefore, there was almost no human traffic on Hunting Ground number 13. In the spacious hall, there was not even a shadow other than Emosher. Emosher scanned the surroundings with his dragon's will and found that there were about 30,000 people on Hunting Island number 13. Of course, these 10,000 people were all residents of the island. They made a living by mining crystal veins in the nearby sea. Emosher went to the self-service ticket terminal and bought a ticket. A ticket cost 130,000. However, Emosher was not short of money. Following the instructions from the computer, he entered the teleportation hall from the side door of the ticket hall. In the teleportation hall, there was a person waiting to be teleported. This was a man who looked to be in his 50s with a full beard. There was a chair at the side, but he did not sit. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the cold floor of the hall. In his arms, he was holding a long sword that was pitch black with occasional white fluorescent strips on it. It looked very high-tech. He was resting with his eyes closed. When he heard Emosher come in, he opened his eyes slightly. Emosher had only exchanged a glance with him when he felt an invisible sense of oppression. This kind of pressure didn't come from the other party's aura, nor did it come from energy. It was a natural pressure that came from the strong to the weak. Even if the other party did not have any malicious intent, this natural pressure still existed. This was enough to show that the bearded man's strength was far beyond Emosher's. Emosher was secretly surprised. He planned to secretly activate the blood dragon's eye to investigate this man. However, just as his eyes turned blood red, the man suddenly raised his head. The man suddenly lifted his eyelids. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he glared at Emosher. Emosher was shocked. This person could feel that he was probing his strength. Ever since Emosher possessed the blood dragon's eye, he had probed the strength of countless people. As long as he was careful and did not let the other party see him, then the other party would not know that he was probing their strength. Even if the other party was a powerful level 7 psychic master, he would not be able to detect it. And this person was actually able to easily sense that he was probing his strength. Then how strong was this person? It was obvious that he was much stronger than himself. Level 5 hunter. Level 6 hunter. Or even bolder, a level 10 desolate hunter. There were only a few people in the entire continent who had reached this level of strength. He didn't expect to meet one here. The man only spoke after the blood-red color in Emosher's eyes quickly receded. His voice was like a clap of thunder. I'm not in a good mood. You'd better not provoke me. This voice seemed to resound in Emosher's heart. Emosher was secretly surprised. The strength of this person had far exceeded the strength of the creatures in the 13th hunting ground. Why would he waste his time coming to Hunting Ground 13? After saying that, the man no longer paid any attention to Emosher. Emosher frowned slightly. This man also wanted to go to the 13th hunting ground. Should he withdraw? Otherwise, if there was a conflict of interest between him and this man, he could easily kill him. Emosher could feel that all his trump cards were useless in front of this man. Even if there was no conflict of interest, as long as this man was in a bad mood and wanted to kill him, he would not be able to escape. Thinking of this, Emosher planned to get up and leave. But at this moment, the man spoke again. Open the file transfer function of your multifunction watch. His voice was filled with an unquestionable command. Emosher had no choice but to do as he was told. He was really unlucky to have come to the 13th hunting ground, but he did not expect to meet such a strong existence. Soon, the man connected to Emosher's multifunction watch and sent a 3D image. From the image, it was a girl in her 20s. She was very beautiful. Although she was not as sexy as Emma, she was not as pure and lovely as Happy. But she looked even cuter than Emma and Happy. Emma was puzzled. Giving his wife away as soon as he met her. How could this work? The man said. If you see her in the 13th hunting ground, contact me immediately. As he spoke, he also sent the number of his multifunction watch. In this way, Mo was in a bit of a difficult situation. It seemed that this man was going to the 13th hunting ground to find this girl. Could he refuse at this moment? If he refused, would this man slap him to death on the spot? But at this moment, the man's gaze was fixed on him. It made him feel as if he was facing a mountain. He could only nod. Okay. After the man finished speaking, he no longer paid attention to him. He was still holding that extremely high-tech long sword and resting with his eyes closed. A moment later, the teleportation device was activated. Mo and the man's figures turned into light spots and disappeared. When they reappeared, they were already at the top of a pyramid. This pyramid was the coordinates of the teleportation. At this moment, at the bottom of the pyramid, there were two local natives worshipping. Suddenly, they saw the two light spots that appeared gradually turned into human figures. These two people were immediately surprised. This is God's manifestation. God's manifestation. The two of them were shocked and pleasantly surprised. Beside Mo, the bearded man didn't pay any attention to the two natives. His right hand pressed on the hilt of the sword. The long sword began to change shape with a crackling sound. In the end, it turned into a giant sword about 5 meters long and 1 foot wide. On one side of the blade of the giant sword, 2 rows of small holes for particle thrusters appeared. Behind the hilt of the giant sword, 2 particle thrusters as thick as thighs appeared. The next moment, light blue particle streams were ejected from the particle thrusters. The giant sword slowly rose with him. At the same time, 2 thick particle streams were ejected from the thick particle thrusters behind the hilt of the sword. The long sword instantly flew forward at high speed. Almost in the blink of an eye, it had already reached more than 10 kilometers away. 10 kilometers per second. This person's longsword was not only a weapon, but also an extremely fast aircraft. After that person left far away, Mo secretly heaved a sigh of relief. When that person was beside him, the pressure was too strong. At this moment, the two below were worshipping Mo with all their might. They were also saying some language that Mo did not understand. The foreign language proficiency skill was only effective on the biological languages on Earth. It was useless for this alien language. However, there was an instant translation software in the multifunctional watch. He put on the micro wireless headphones. The translated words came into his ears. God's manifestation is manifest. God's manifestation is manifest. Chapter 283. The two of them actually thought of him as a god. Mo shook his head slowly. The eye of the blood dragon appeared and observed the strength of the two. The person on the left frowny face species, human, level 3 hunter, the person on the right frowny face species, human, level 3 hunter, pft. Mo felt like he was about to vomit blood. Could it be that everyone on this planet was a desolate hunter? As there were very few people who came to the 13th hunting ground, there were almost no guides to share on the internet. Mo only knew that in the 13th hunting ground, the strongest creature was equivalent to a level 4 desolate hunter. However, he did not expect to see 2 level 3 hunters as soon as he arrived. This was King ridiculous. He used the dragon's will plunder to plunder the memories of the two. From the memories of the two, he found some information that he wanted to know. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. It turned out that the strongest creatures in the 13th hunting ground were level 4 hunters. However, there were very few level 4 hunters. It was even a question whether there were any level 4 hunters. A level 3 desolate hunter was basically the strongest existence in a tribe. In the entire 13th hunting ground, there were less than 1,000 people who were above the level of hunters. However, other than these less than 1,000 level 3 hunters, there were countless zombies infected with the virus on this planet. These zombies were not as weak as the zombies on Earth. The strength of each of these zombies was equivalent to that of a dire beast. Hence, they were called dire corpses. As for the animals on this planet, they were not infected with the virus. The strongest ones were level 4 dire beasts. And the number of dire beasts was extremely large. As for how many there was no concept in the memories of the two people. Since it was so dangerous outside, Emosher naturally had to find a safe place to stay first. Emosher took a step from the top of the pyramid to the two people. Upon closer inspection, apart from being a little darker, these two people did not look any different from the Easterners on Earth. When the two people saw Emosher coming in front of them, they quickly prostrated themselves on the ground to worship him. Emosher said, "Get up. Get up, take me to your tribe." Of course, his words were also translated into the native language by the multifunctional watch. When the two heard this, they were overjoyed. He kowtowed repeatedly. Then, he carefully led Emosher away from the pyramid. Following the path in the forest, they headed towards the tribe. On the small path in the forest, there would occasionally be a few desolate corpses. Their levels were not high. It looked like it was only level 7 to 8. Emosher knew that although desolate corpses could move around during the day, they were still able to move around during the day. But their favorite time was at night. Therefore, there were very few desolate corpses that came out during the day. Furthermore, they could not find any food at night and could only come out during the day. With a thought from Emosher, the Azure Dragon avatar appeared. Overall, it looked like a 20-meter-long crocodile. However, the scales on his body were much harder than those of a crocodile. Its claws were sharper than those of a crocodile. Its tail had a sharp blade, and its back had a triangular fin that was as sharp as a blade. The two men had never seen such a creature. He also saw that it had appeared out of thin air with a wave of the god's right hand. They thought that it was the god's beast. The two of them hurriedly prostrated themselves and worshipped the Azure Dragon avatar. Through the memories of these two people, Emosher already knew that on this planet, there was only one place with the most desolate beasts. That was the Starsbar Forest. Translated, it was the Forest of Death. In that forest, there were many desolate beasts. There were also many mutated desolate beasts. Moreover, the Forest of Death was not too far from here. It was only about 300 kilometers away. Emosher used the bodies of those zombies to condense a virus avatar. He let the virus avatar bring the personal reservoir to the Forest of Death. Emosher's virus avatar could now reach a speed of 10 kilometers per second using the Dragon Shadow Step. In a short 30 seconds, he arrived at the Forest of Death. At the edge of the Forest of Death, there were desolate beasts below mutated desolate beasts. They were not very beneficial to the Azure Dragon avatar. Therefore, Emosher let the Azure Dragon avatar continue to climb inside. As for why he did not let the virus avatar continue to bring the personal reservoir inside, that was because the virus clone had already died upon reaching this place. It was easily killed by a level 9 desolate beast. And that level 9 desolate beast was swallowed by the Azure Dragon avatar. After that, the Azure Dragon avatar used thousands of tentacles to swallow more than 500 desolate beasts nearby and continued to climb deeper into the forest. The desolate beasts in the periphery were not very beneficial to it. Therefore, it crawled into the depths of the forest at its fastest speed. When it crawled, its posture was very strange. Its upper body was 30 degrees away from the ground, and its two front legs did not touch the ground. Its two hind legs were like the pedals of a bicycle, constantly and quickly rotating to support the ground. This speed was much faster than crawling on 4 legs. The two front legs could also separate the trees and other obstacles in front of it. If it encountered a boulder or other obstacles, it could also jump up at its fastest speed. With this posture, its speed could reach more than 50 meters per second. This was much faster than ordinary reptiles. Of course, this was only a posture used when running for long distances. If it was a short distance sprint, it would use a leaping posture to advance. Just like a cheetah. It was just that its leaping distance was very long. Every step was 70 to 80 meters. It shuttled through this dark and gloomy forest. At the same time, Emosure had been taken to the Aboriginal tribe. This tribe of Aboriginals was located in a forest. In the center of this forest, there was a large mountain peak. Every mountain peak rose from the ground and pierced into the clouds. Between these mountain peaks, there were suspension bridges connecting them. This Aboriginal tribe was on these mountain peaks. This was also to avoid the attacks of those desolate beasts. They had no choice but to do so. When they came to the bottom of the mountain peak, there was a guard at the top who lowered a rope. The people in the tribe basically had the strength of a scavenger. So as long as they were given a rope, they could quickly climb up along the rope. Of course, with Emosure's strength, he did not need this at all. After the two Aborigines climbed up, he had already arrived in front of the two with the dragon's shadow step. When the other Aborigines around saw this scene, they were all shocked. The two indigenous people who had brought Emosure here immediately turned to the others and whispered something. Those people immediately bowed their heads to the ground and kowtowed. As they bowed, they said, "Greetings, God. Greetings, God. Lord God, I want to have a son. Lord God, I want to have a wife. Lord God, I want to be circumcised." Emosure, damn, you want me to be circumcised? This is too much. Chapter 284. The tribe that Emosure came to was called the Wakata tribe. When translated, it meant, descendants of God, tribe. The people in the tribe all felt that they were the descendants of God. Therefore, when they saw Emosure, they were all very excited. To them, it was as if they had seen their ancestors. Emosure opened his mouth for food and stretched out his hand for clothes. That night, Emosure was arranged to stay in the best stone house on the tallest mountain in the tribe. Emosure lay on the stone bed in the stone house. He used his dragon's will to explore the entire tribe while using the blood dragon's eye to observe the entire tribe. In the entire tribe, in addition to the 2 level, 3 desolate hunters he had seen before, there were more than 10 level, 2 desolate hunters and more than 100 level, 1 desolate hunters. The rest of the people were basically level 8 and above. Even the 10-year-old children were level 5 desolate hunters. The strength of the entire tribe, if placed in the flaming origin continent, would definitely be a dominating existence. Everything in the tribe was good. It was safe and comfortable to stay here. Emosure had secretly decided that before the sea dragon clone advanced to a level 5 mutated desolate beast, he did not plan to leave. Therefore, in the next few days, Emosure walked here and there in the tribe. As long as he found a valuable place, he would continue to sign in. He also obtained a lot of good things. Other than signing in, Emosure controlled the sea dragon clone to devour the mutated desolate beasts in the Forest of Death most of the time. He entered the depths of the Forest of Death. With a sweep of his dragon's will, he explored a radius of more than 100 kilometers clearly. Within this radius of more than 100 kilometers, there were many powerful mutated desolate beasts. Most of them were level 1 or level 2 mutated desolate beasts. Occasionally, there would be level 3 mutated desolate beasts. These mutated desolate beasts all had their own territories. The entire 5-kilometer radius of the forest where Emosure was currently in was the territory of a level 3 desolate beast. Emosure did not care about this. He controlled the sea dragon clone and directly used thousands of tentacles to devour the level 1 desolate beasts nearby. The level 3 desolate beast, in its normal form, was only about 10 meters long. It looked like a giant elephant. However, there were dozens of spikes on its long nose. The 2 tusks were also longer and thicker. It realized that there were intruders in its territory. Suddenly, a gurgling sound came from his throat. One had to know that to a mutated desolate beast, its territory was its dignity. This outsider had casually entered its territory and slaughtered its prey in its territory. This was undoubtedly a challenge to its prestige. With a single step, it covered more than 50 meters in an instant. It didn't lurk quietly like it usually did. When dealing with foreign invaders, they had to give them the most fatal blow with lightning speed. Therefore, it was almost rampaging. The trees and even the rocks in its way were easily crushed by it. His entire body, like a high-speed cannonball, crashed into the sea dragon clone. Seeing this, Mo controlled the sea dragon clone. In an instant, he made a 90-degree turn. His body went from perpendicular to the mutated desolate beast to parallel to it. At the same time, the sea dragon clone's 7 to 8 meter long tail, with 3 sharp blades on 3 sides, fiercely whipped the level 3 wild beast. Bang, crack, it was accompanied by a heavy muffled sound. The mutated desolate beast's body immediately flew far away. Crack, 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 it broke several giant trees. The debris of the broken branches kept flying. A few of its ribs had already been broken. On the side of its body, there was a 3-meter-long bloody mark that had been cut by a sharp blade. The bloody mark was so deep that bone could be seen. However, the level 3 mutated desolate beast was not afraid at all. Instead, it was even angrier. Gurgling, it made a strange roaring sound from its throat. Its entire body began to grow rapidly. However, at this moment, Mo's sea dragon clone suddenly jumped and was once again more than 50 meters away from its side. Then it jumped again. 50 meters in an instant. It directly pounced to the side of the level 3 mutated desolate beast. It opened its mouth and bit down hard. One had to know that the sea dragon clone's mouth evolved from the long palate of a crocodile. Its bite force was quite astonishing. With this bite, it directly bit the waist of the level 3 mutated desolate beast. Crack, the bones of the level 3 mutated desolate beast's waist were directly bitten off. The level 3 mutated desolate beast that was transforming into its combat form suddenly lost its momentum. Its transforming body also quickly returned to its original form. Although desolate beasts and mutated desolate beasts could reach their peak strength after transforming into their combat form, they were 10 times or even dozens of times stronger than their normal state. But there was a weakness, and that was that the transformation process could not be disturbed. Of course, during the transformation process, level 3 mutated desolate beasts also had a thin layer of energy protection on the surface of their bodies to ensure that their transformation was smooth. Don't underestimate this thin layer of energy protection. Its defensive power could safely withstand the energy attacks of opponents of the same level. However, this time, this level 3 mutated desolate beast's layer of energy defense was easily bitten apart. Ordinary mutated desolate beasts almost didn't use energy in battle. After all, they were beasts, and their intelligence was limited. In their opinion, their claws and teeth were their strongest weapons, and they were easy to use. They were much easier to use than energy. And Mo, as a human, also used human thinking when controlling the sea dragon avatar to fight. In his opinion, if he didn't use such powerful energy, wouldn't he be a fool? So every attack of Mo's was actually accompanied by energy. That level 3 mutated desolate beast naturally couldn't withstand it. Next, Mo controlled the sea dragon avatar to directly open its huge mouth and swallow that level 3 mutated desolate beast bite by bite. That level 3 mutated desolate beast saw that the back half of its body was about to be eaten up. This made it feel a sense of powerlessness and fear in its heart. In this extreme powerlessness and fear, it roared to the sky. Ao, G, Lulu 2. Following its roar, Mo's dragon consciousness detected that all level 2 and level 3 desolate beasts within a radius of 100 kilometers were stunned. Then they put down what they were doing and rushed over at an extremely fast speed. Seeing this, Mo sneered. Trying to scare people, huh? I'm not afraid that you won't come, but I'm afraid that you'll send people. Thinking of this, Mo quickly swallowed the level 3 mutated desolate beast in a few big mouthfuls. He felt that the energy in his body had obviously increased by a lot. His dragon consciousness probed the level 3 mutated desolate beasts that were constantly rushing over. The corners of Emoshure's mouth curled up into a faint smile. I'm not afraid that you'll come, but I'm afraid that you won't dare to come, and I'm even more afraid that you won't come enough. Chapter 285. Emoshure detected that under the summons of this level 3 mutated desolate beast before it died, there were as many as 30 level 3 mutated desolate beasts within a radius of 100 kilometers, all rushing towards this side. He was instantly delighted. After swallowing this level 3 mutated desolate beast, he laid down on a cold boulder to rest comfortably. The temperature in the forest of death was not low. With such a cold boulder to lie down on to cool down, it was really a very pleasant thing. The level 3 mutated desolate beasts were not considered slow. The slowest one could leap 30 to 40 meters per second. Not long after, those level 3 mutated desolate beasts had already arrived in front of him. They formed an encirclement around Emoshure. These level 3 mutated desolate beasts seemed to be the same species as the level 3 mutated desolate beast from before. They looked similar to the level 3 mutated desolate beast from before. They should be its 7 aunts, 8 aunts, brothers, sisters, sisters-in-law, cousins, and so on. They opened their huge mouths one by one, revealing sharp fangs. At the same time, their front 2 sharp claws were constantly digging into the ground. They appeared to be angry and anxious. At some point, they seemed to have received some kind of order. At the same time, they pounced towards Emoshure's sea dragon clone. Emoshure's dragon will moved. The current sea dragon clone was already able to withstand level 4 dragon will. The level 4 dragon will suddenly spread out, directly attacking the heads of these level 3 mutated desolate beasts. However, these level 3 mutated desolate beasts were equivalent to level 3 desolate hunters. Emoshure's level 4 dragon will naturally could not do anything to them. At most, they would be slightly startled and stunned for a moment. However, this was exactly what Emoshure wanted. Just as they were in a daze. On the surface of the sea dragon clone's body, a total of 50 tentacles suddenly spread out. They were sucking towards the surface of these level 3 mutated desolate beasts. When these mutated desolate beasts came back to their senses, their bodies had already been sucked in by a huge suction cup. The energy in the energy bubbles in their bodies was involuntarily sucked into the suction cup. At the same time, their blood was also being sucked in. Gurgle, 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 it could be seen that on the 50 tentacles, there was clearly something constantly moving into the sea dragon clone's body. These grade 3 mutated desolate beasts could feel their energy and blood draining away. It immediately tried to control 6 claws in fear, shaking its head in an attempt to free itself from the suction cup. But it was clear that their efforts ended in failure. In just 5 minutes, the bodies of these level 3 mutated desolate beasts had turned into dried corpses of skin and bones. There was not a single drop of blood inside, nor a single trace of energy. At the same time, Emoshure could feel the energy in his body increasing rapidly. He could clearly feel that after another 5 or 6 waves of this, he would be able to advance to level 4. After devouring these level 3 mutated desolate beasts, he continued to search for level 3 mutated desolate beasts within a radius of a few hundred kilometers. Of course, in the process of searching, if he encountered a level 2 mutated desolate beast, he would also devour it. Although the effects of a level 2 mutated desolate beast were not as obvious as a level 3 mutated desolate beast, he still understood the principle of many a little makes an ocean. Finally, at noon the next day, after devouring another wave of more than 30 level 3 mutant wild beasts, waves of muscle-tearing pain came from the sea dragon avatar's body. Emoshure quickly shifted his consciousness back into his body. You can bear the pain alone and share the joy together. Half an hour later, the sea dragon avatar's advancement was estimated to have been completed. Emoshure's consciousness once again returned to the sea dragon avatar's body. At this time, looking at the sea dragon avatar again, it was actually a little smaller than the previous 20 meters. It was only 15 meters long. Emoshure couldn't help but be stunned. He quickly looked at the sea dragon avatar's level. Species, Sea Dragon, Level 4 Mutated Desolate Beast, Ability, Evolution by Devouring. Emosher frowned slightly when he saw this. Shouldn't a promotion be bigger? Why did this guy's size not increase but decrease after the promotion? What the F***ck? In fact, Emosher didn't know that for normal desolate beasts, the stronger they were, the bigger they would be. Even in a normal state, their size would increase. But on this zombie planet, due to the environment, these mutated desolate beasts had learned to pretend to be weak. Often, the stronger they were, the smaller they were. Because they were smaller, their speed would increase a lot. And it consumed less energy. At this time, after the Sea Dragon avatar devoured the mutated desolate beasts here, it also had the genes of those mutated desolate beasts in its body. These genes had transformed the Sea Dragon avatar's body. As a result, it also had the attribute that the stronger it was, the smaller it would be. Fortunately, Emosher saw that the Sea Dragon avatar's level had increased by 1 level, which made him confirm that the Sea Dragon avatar was indeed getting stronger and stronger. Only then did he feel slightly relieved. According to his estimation, as long as he stayed in this forest of death for another 25 or 26 days, the strength of the Sea Dragon avatar should be improved again. Night. In the forest of death, it was even darker than during the day. It was so dark that one couldn't even see their own claws. Emosher controlled the 15-meter-long Sea Dragon avatar and leaped forward in the night. At the same time, he used his dragon consciousness to explore the surroundings. After a few days of hunting, there were no level 3 mutated desolate beasts nearby. Emosher wasn't surprised by this. Originally, the peak combat power on this planet was a level 4 mutated desolate beast. Although a level 3 mutated desolate beast hadn't reached the peak, it was still considered a top combat power. Naturally, there couldn't be too many of them. After running for more than 20 minutes, Emosher finally detected that there were 5 level 3 mutated desolate beasts more than 100 kilometers ahead. Mutated desolate beasts generally moved alone. But at this time, these 5 mutated desolate beasts were moving in a group, which made Emosher feel a little strange. Of course, he didn't know much about the species on this planet. Among so many animals, it wasn't strange that there were social animals. In short, there were 5 level 3 mutated desolate beasts for him to devour, so he naturally couldn't let them go. After a few more minutes, Emosher had arrived at a place not far from where the mutated desolate beasts were. As usual, he used his dragon consciousness to carefully explore the surroundings 3 times. When there was no danger, he quietly crept toward the mutated desolate beasts. A moment later, he arrived behind the 5 level 3 mutated desolate beasts. This was by a river overgrown with trees. The river wasn't rushing. There were more than a dozen trees of various sizes growing in the river. The 5 level 3 mutated desolate beasts were drinking water by the river bank. Emosher quietly crept behind one of the level 3 mutated desolate beasts. Just as he was about to extend his tentacles. But at this moment, one of the level 3 mutated desolate beasts seemed to have discovered him. It quickly roared, "Ka ka ka," to warn the other level 3 mutated desolate beasts. Then, with a splash, it jumped into the river and fled. Chapter 286. The level 3 mutant wild beast seemed to have discovered Emosher. After letting out a warning roar to its companions, it jumped into the river with a plop. Swaying its limbs, it quickly swam towards the other side of the river. Seeing this, the other level 3 mutant wild beasts also cried out in alarm and jumped into the river. Emosher's tentacles could only reach out 50 meters at the moment. It was still a little short. He shook his head helplessly. Since I can't resist, I might as well lie down and enjoy it. There's no need to struggle. As he spoke, he came to the shore and also jumped into the river with a plop. He chased after the 5 level 3 mutant wild beasts. This river was very wide, about 200 meters wide. The terrain in the river was complicated, with all kinds of trees of various sizes and many aquatic plants. However, the sea dragon clone was born in the water, so it was no stranger to fighting in the water. It quickly bypassed the branches, aquatic plants, and stones. It chased after the 5 3 mutant wild beasts. In just over 10 seconds, he had caught up to them and was within reach of them. With a thought, more than 50 tentacles stretched out from his body. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt that there seemed to be something under his body. In the next moment, that thing quickly wrapped around Immortal's body. Immortal immediately knew that something was wrong. Damn it, I've been tricked. In just an instant, Immortal realized that the 5-3 mutant wild beasts were actually luring him on the shore. After luring him into the water, the creatures hidden underwater could sneak up on him. At the same time, he was very curious. The water here was not deep, only about 5 meters deep. Logically speaking, his dragons should be able to easily detect the creatures inside. Just now, he had also probed 3 times and clearly detected the creatures in the water. He knew that even if there were some mutant wild beasts here, they were only level 1. They would not pose any threat to him. But at this moment, when he probed just now, he did not detect this creature at all. This was the first time in his life that something could avoid the detection of his dragon's will. And the strangest thing was that that thing had already begun to wrap around his body. His dragon's will could not detect it at all. Damn it, what the hell is this? Immortal cursed in his heart. Then, it raised its long tail and propped itself up on the bottom of the river. At the same time, his long mouth also curled up and began to support the bottom of the river. Then, he quickly flipped his body. Plop, plop, plop. He flipped 3 times in an instant. That thing obviously didn't expect this strange little thing to be so agile and powerful when it flipped over. Immortal immediately broke free from the entanglement. Naturally, it did not know that this was the roll of death. On Earth, the most terrifying move of the crocodiles was the death roll. As long as it bit down on the arm, a death roll would be able to remove an adult's arm. From this, one could see how powerful it was when it rolled. However, Immortal's death roll wasn't used to attack, but to escape. After breaking free, he quickly swam to the shore. But at this moment, that thing once again wrapped itself around Immortal's body. Immortal hurriedly used death roll again. Plop plop, he rolled 5 times in a row. Not only did he break free from that thing, but he also rolled ashore. As soon as they reached the shore, Immortal suddenly jumped up. He jumped onto a giant tree with a diameter of more than 5 meters not far away. At this moment, that thing also climbed ashore. It was only now that Immortal saw it clearly. This thing should be a giant python. However, the giant pythons of this world seemed to be different from the giant pythons on Earth. There were no scales on its body. It looked meaty. And through the grayish-white skin, one could also see the pale green blood vessels under its skin. This thing was about half a meter in diameter. Its exposed body seemed to be about 30 meters long. And this giant python didn't have a head. It didn't have eyes, mouth, nostrils, or anything like that. Immortal was secretly puzzled. He used Dragon's Will to investigate again. But he found that Dragon's Will was still unable to detect the existence of this thing. And the strange thing was that after its body appeared, it began to change rapidly. The color of its body turned the same green as its surroundings. The strangest thing was that it wasn't just the color that changed. Even its form changed. Its skin began to change continuously, and some wrinkles appeared. And it also turned greenish-black. From time to time, green furry things appeared on it. A moment later, it looked like a tree that had just fallen down. And the furry green things on its body were obviously imitating the moss on the tree trunk. F***ck, not only did this fellow's color blend into its surroundings. Even its form was imitating its surroundings. And it was imitating it perfectly. If Immortal hadn't seen this fellow's change with his own eyes, he would definitely have thought that it was a real tree that had just fallen. At this moment, he finally understood that this fellow definitely had top-notch disguise skills. He used the blood dragon's eye to look. Species, ever-changing octopus. Level 4 mutated desolate beast. Talent, disguise concealment. Seeing this, Mosher finally understood. This was a mutated desolate beast that had awakened its talent. The talent of disguise concealment could avoid any spiritual detection. And if it disguised itself, even if it was close, it would be difficult to detect it with the naked eye. This made Mosher very envious. If he killed this thing, would he be able to sign in and obtain such a talent? Thinking of this, his dragon will moved and tore towards this thing. Of course, this thing's body was extremely strong, and it was impossible for the dragon will to tear it apart. But Mosher did this just to use the dragon will to attract its attention. And it jumped down from the tree. Using the momentum of its descent, its tail was like a sharp long knife as it slashed towards that thing. Pooh! The slash of its tail left a bloody wound about a foot deep on the surface of that thing's body. Roar! A roar suddenly came from the middle of the river. Then, more than 10 similar big snakes quickly climbed up from the river beside it. They surrounded the sea dragon doppelganger. Of course, Mosher already knew that this was not a big snake, nor was it a giant python. It was the tentacles of the ever-changing octopus. These tentacles were like giant pythons half a meter in diameter, surrounding Mosher in a fan shape. Seeing this, Mosher directly activated his battle form. Cracking sounds kept coming from his body. Accompanied by these cracking sounds, the body of the sea dragon clone was rapidly growing. In just 20 seconds, the body of the sea dragon clone had reached a length of more than 400 meters. At the same time, its claws and teeth, including the tail behind it, were covered with a layer of blood-red energy. During battle, attaching energy to their weapons was the strongest combat form that a desolate beast should have. Chapter 287. Mosher controlled the body of the sea dragon clone and quickly transformed it into battle form. As a level 4 mutated wild beast, the body of the sea dragon clone had already reached a length of 400 meters. Under Mosher's control, its claws, fangs, and tail were all covered in a layer of blood-red energy. With the addition of energy, the sharpness of these weapons would be greatly enhanced. At this moment, the true face of the ever-changing octopus was revealed. Its head popped out of the river. Its head was similar to that of an ordinary octopus. It was just that its entire body was grayish-white. Under the grayish-white skin, there were green blood vessels everywhere. It actually had more than 50 tentacles. Each of them was over 400 meters long. And if necessary, these tentacles could continue to extend. Mosher felt a lingering fear. Fortunately, he reacted quickly just now. If he had been a little slower, he might not have been able to escape from being surrounded by so many tentacles. At this moment, more than 20 huge tentacles had already surrounded Mosher. Mosher sneered. A bolt of lightning instantly covered the surface of his body. It formed an electric net. As Mosher became more familiar with the electric current, his control over the lightning also became stronger. He could already control the electric current and form an electric net on the surface of his body for defense. The tentacles couldn't be retracted in time and directly touched the electric net. Hey, the tentacles quickly retracted. Although it wasn't enough to electrocute it to death with one strike, Mosher's electric shock this time had been enhanced with energy. The octopus was stunned by the electric shock. Mosher took the opportunity to leap. He pounced towards the octopus's head. His sharp claws were infused with energy as he slashed at the octopus's head. The octopus subconsciously raised 2 thick tentacles to block. Swish, swish, with 2 soft sounds, the 2 thick claws were cut off and fell to the ground. The 10,000 steps octopus roared in pain. Aoo, say. At the same time, its other tentacles also attacked the sea dragon clone. However, the sea dragon clone's body was covered with a layer of electric net. As soon as the octopus's tentacles touched the electric net, they were once again electrocuted until they kept buzzing. The octopus hurriedly wanted to shrink its head into the water. Its strength lay in its concealment. It could hide its body and then launch a surprise attack when the enemy was caught off guard. Killing with one blow. This was its forte. It wasn't good at fighting the enemy face to face. As long as it entered the water, it could hide again. At that time, it would be difficult for the enemy to find it again. At this moment, of course, Emosure was deeply aware of this. He snorted. Want to escape? He controlled the sea dragon clone and jumped into the river. His body continued to release electric currents. Hiss, with the sea dragon clone's current energy. The released electric current immediately covered the entire river. Hiss hiss, hiss, hiss. One could see with the naked eye that streaks of electric current were slithering about on the surface of the river like little snakes. The octopus could no longer hide. Electricity kept flowing through his body. Many of its tentacles were already smokeless at the same time. The sea dragon clone also stretched out its tentacles. It directly wrapped around the octopus's tentacles. The suction cup was directly attached to the other party's suction cup. A blood-red tentacle stretched out from the suction cup. Gurgle gurgle, it was constantly absorbing the blood and energy in the octopus's body. At this moment, the octopus seemed to be unable to hold it in any longer and opened its mouth. Boom, a thick energy beam about 5 meters in diameter shot fiercely at Emosure's sea dragon clone. The sea dragon clone couldn't dodge in time. Its 2 hind legs were directly cut off by the energy beam. The octopus opened its mouth again and was about to spit out another energy beam. Emosure hurriedly used his dragon will to attack the octopus's brain. This octopus was equivalent to being close to a major realm higher than Emosure. Emosure's dragon will naturally couldn't affect its body. However, when Emosure concentrated all of his dragon will to attack its brain, the dragon will was unable to do anything. Its brain also felt a sharp stabbing pain. Roar, under the intense pain, this guy let out a shocking roar. While it was roaring, Emosure controlled the sea dragon clone and blasted a beam of energy directly at its energy bubble. Chi, although this energy wasn't thick, it directly blasted open the energy shield on the surface of its body. And shattered the energy bubble in its abdomen. Immediately, a large amount of energy poured out. Without the support of energy, the octopus immediately screamed and fell into the water. Emosure ignored the pain in his body and controlled the sea dragon clone to bombard it with energy again. Boom, under the bombardment of energy, the octopus's head was directly pierced through. Finally, the dozens of tentacles on this 400-meter-long behemoth's body, after crazily rolling and twisting, stopped moving. Phew, Emosure heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. This guy wasn't very strong in combat, but it was very difficult to deal with. With dozens of tentacles on its body, if he wasn't careful, he would be attacked by its tentacles. Then, Emosure gave the sea dragon clone a dozen bottles of recovery medicine. The incomplete parts of the sea dragon clone's body began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. On the other side of the river, the 5 level, 3 mutant wild beasts saw that this strange wild beast was so strong, and hurriedly turned their heads and fled deeper into the forest without looking back. However, would Emosure let them go at this time? The answer was obviously impossible. After the 2 hind legs and tail grew back, he controlled the sea dragon clone and jumped into the water with a splash. At an extremely fast speed, he swam towards the other side of the river. Soon, he climbed to the other side. Then, he quickly jumped over. The 5 level, 3 mutant wild beasts were much slower than Emosure. Within 10 minutes, Emosure finished off all 5 level, 3 mutant wild beasts. After swallowing the corpses of these mutant wild beasts, Emosure signed in his mind, system, sign in for a special event. The system, like a boy in love, replied instantly after seeing his girlfriend's message frowny face sign in successful. Sign in event, killed the mutant wild beast ever-changing octopus, sign in reward, concealment, Emosure nodded. It was indeed this skill. He carefully looked at the skill description in his mind. Concealment, both the sea dragon clone and the main body can use it. When the skill is activated, it can change the color and shape of the body, simulating the color and shape of the surrounding environment. And when using the concealment skill, it can avoid any spiritual, thermal, infrared, and other detection. Awesome! Mo sure was overjoyed. In front of this skill, any technological means and spiritual detection would be completely ineffective. With this skill, even his main body could walk around this dangerous planet at will. Of course, with Mo sure's caution, he wouldn't do this casually. Chapter 288. After acquiring the camouflage concealment skill, Mo sure continued to devour more than 50 level 3 mutant wild beasts. However, for the sea dragon clone, which had been promoted to a level 4 mutant wild beast, the effect of devouring these level 3 mutant wild beasts was not as obvious as before. If he wanted to devour and evolve quickly now, he had to devour level 4 mutant wild beasts. However, level 4 mutant wild beasts were the most powerful existences on this planet. Naturally, there were not that many of them. After devouring for about 2 hours, he finally detected a mutated wild beast that looked like a spider but had 2 horns and a long tail about 200 kilometers away. Species, double-horned snake-tailed spider, level 4 mutant wild beast, talent, ultrasonic attack. Mo sure immediately took a step forward and ran toward the double-horned snake-tailed spider. When he was 5 kilometers away from the double-horned snake-tailed spider, Mo sure activated the camouflage concealment skill. The entire body of the sea dragon clone began to change color. It changed from black to the same green as the surrounding environment. At the same time, its limbs gradually turned into the same shape as the dried branches around it. From the outside, it looked exactly like 4 branches. Its tail also turned into the shape of a long branch. Its torso turned into the shape of a decaying tree trunk. Overall, the sea dragon clone looked like a decaying tree that had fallen many years ago. If one looked at it with the naked eye, even if it was close, one would not be able to tell the difference. Mo sure quietly moved forward. Not long after, he approached the double-horned snake-tailed spider. The double-horned snake-tailed spider originally had spider senses. Once danger approached, the fur on the surface of its body would suddenly stand on end. The double-horned snake-tailed spider could use this to foresee danger and quickly leave. But the camouflage concealment skill was abnormal in this aspect, it could not be detected by any senses. Even if it was just a sixth sense like spider senses, the camouflage concealment would completely evade it. Therefore, when Mo sure was only about 5 meters away from the double-horned snake-tailed spider, it did not feel any danger. It was still happily weaving its web, trying to catch some prey. This distance was enough for Mo sure to launch an attack. Mo sure did not rashly launch an attack. Instead, he moved slowly in the shadows. They arrived at the path of the twin-horned snake-tailed spider. When the twin-horned snake-tailed spider crawled over with a thin strand of spider silk on its tail. Only then did Mo sure suddenly explode. His teeth carried a huge amount of energy as he bit down on the head of the twin-horned snake-tailed spider. That twin-horned snake-tailed spider was too confident in its spider senses and didn't expect danger to be right in front of it. Therefore, there was no time to react. Poof! Under the terrifying bite force of the sea dragon clone, the double-horned snake-tailed spider's head exploded. The poison that it was so proud of and its ultrasonic attack skill did not have time to use at all. Puff 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 puff, as the sea dragon clone swallowed, the double-horned snake-tailed spider's body quickly shrank. In the end, it was completely devoured by the sea dragon clone. The energy in his body had increased by a few notches. Speaking of which, this camouflage skill was really useful. If he didn't have this skill, Mo sure would have to spend a little more effort to fight a few rounds with the twin-horned snake-tailed spider. Now that he had this skill, he could sneak up on them and insta-kill them. This skill was completely made for assassination. Next, Mo sure used this skill to assassinate more than 30 level 4 mutated desolate beasts. None of these 30 mutated desolate beasts could see through the sea dragon clone's camouflage. However, there weren't many level 4 mutated desolate beasts in the Forest of Death. Mo spent another 2 days and only swallowed more than 50 level, for mutated desolate beasts. After that, he couldn't find even 1 level, for mutated desolate beast. This made him a little depressed. The Forest of Death didn't live up to its name. It seemed that he could only go to other places to look for level, for mutated desolate beasts or level, for mutated desolate corpses. Another 2 days later, when Mo was chasing a level, for mutated desolate corpse, he came to a city on a plain. From afar, this city looked like a huge stone beast, entrenched between the blue sky and green grass. Mo plundered the memories of a few guards at the city gate. From these memories, Mo knew that the tribes in this city didn't worship gods. They worshipped desolate corpses. The reason was that they had worshipped gods for thousands of years, but no gods had helped them exorcise the mutated desolate beasts and desolate corpses. Instead, the number of desolate corpses increased. And the desolate corpses seemed to be unkillable no matter how hard they tried. So later, they turned to worshipping these desolate corpses. This sounded strange logically, but it was the truth. They were obsessed with the desolate corpses that occupied almost half of the planet. They worshipped their strength, their numbers, and their almost unlimited lifespan. So almost every year, they would select a batch of humans and offer them to the desolate corpses. They hoped that the desolate corpses would bless them and keep them safe this year. On the contrary, outsiders like Mo were likely to be offered to the desolate corpses. And the level, for mutated desolate corpse just now had entered this city. Mo shook his head slightly. These humans were already in cahoots with the desolate corpses. There were really all kinds of strange things. If it was in the past, Mo would have retreated. It was not worth risking his life for a level, for mutated desolate corpse. But now, Mo had just obtained the concealment and camouflage skill, so he naturally wanted to try it out. Thinking of this, his body began to slowly change. The color was almost the same as the surrounding grass. The shape of his entire body also changed. Green hair grew on his limbs and the surface of his body. It was like strands of green grass. As a whole, the sea dragon clone looked like an inconspicuous protrusion in the middle of a grassland. His body was covered with weeds just like the rest of the body. With this disguise, Mo lay on the roadside outside the city gate. Humans passed by this roadside from time to time. They talked, laughed, and joked around. They did not notice at all that there was a monster hiding on the road a few meters away from them. But in the afternoon, just as the sun was about to set, Mo experienced a crisis. A group of Aborigines was returning to the city when they passed by Mo. One of the Aborigines left the group and came to Mo's side. He directly tore open his pants, revealed his small penis, and began to pee. Hearing the pee sound close by, Mo had some lingering fear. Damn it, it was less than a meter away. It seemed that he had to be careful when choosing a hiding place in the future. Otherwise, he would be peed all over if he was not careful. Chapter 289. Gradually, the sky darkened. The number of desolate corpses around also increased. Mo even saw that some of the desolate corpses directly walked out of the city. Could it be that in this city, these desolate corpses had already begun to coexist with humans? This was the same as zombies and humans coexisting in the same city on Earth. It was inconceivable. When the last ray of light completely disappeared from the west, Mo began to move. He controlled the sea dragon avatar. His body was almost touching the grass as he moved forward quickly. Soon, he arrived at the city gate. The city gate was not closed at this time. As there were desolate corpses coming in and out, this city gate was basically open all day. Of course, Mo did not go through the city gate. Instead, he climbed up along the wall on one side of the city gate. In order to resist the desolate beasts, the city wall here was built very high. It was more than 50 meters high. But for Mo who had 4 claws, this was not a problem at all. He climbed up the city wall and quickly passed between 2 soldiers. He jumped into the city wall. At this time, he used the dragon mind to explore the surroundings. He discovered that not all desolate corpses and humans lived in this city. After entering the city gate, there was a tunnel. During the day, humans entered and exited from the tunnel above. At night, the desolate corpses entered and exited from the tunnel directly. Through the memories he plundered, Mosher knew that these desolate corpses actually lived underground. After entering this tunnel, he would enter the nest of the desolate corpses after going down for another 50 meters. And the nest below extended in all directions. It led to many places outside the city. Mosher did not enter here rashly. Instead, he moved stealthily in the city while plundering the memories of those people to find the information he needed. More than half an hour later, he made a shocking discovery when he was searching the memories of the tribe leader. From the tribe leader's memories, Mosher knew that they had captured a few outsiders more than 20 days ago. They wanted to offer these outsiders to the desolate corpses. And among these outsiders, there was a woman who looked exactly the same as the photo of the girl that Mosher met in the 13th Hunting Island's teleportation hall. Mosher could not help but be moved. She couldn't be the daughter of that expert, right? Should he contact that expert? After a while, Mosher made up his mind. That expert didn't seem to have any ill intentions. Moreover, that person's strength was so strong. There shouldn't be any harm in making friends with him. Of course, for such a powerhouse, the information provided must be accurate. Otherwise, if that fella destroyed him out of anger, then wouldn't Huang be wronged? So he continued to search through the memories of the people in the tribe. With the current strength of his telekinesis, robbing these people's memories would not cause any negative effects to him. More than an hour later, he had gone through the memories of some senior officers in the tribe. Then, they compared the information with each other and confirmed the real information. That girl was indeed captured and offered to those desolate corpses. Mosher was slightly taken aback. If that girl died, would that expert destroy the entire 13th hunting ground in a fit of rage? Following that, he plundered some of the desolate corpses' memories. From their memories, Mosher once again obtained information about the girl. It turned out that after that girl was brought into the desolate corpse lair, she was not directly eaten. Instead, she was locked up. Because even according to the aesthetics of these desolate corpses, they felt that the girl was very beautiful. These desolate corpses felt that the more beautiful a human was, the more delicious they were. After a while, the boss of the desolate corpses would come for an inspection. Naturally, they would leave this delicacy for their boss to enjoy. Mosher plundered the memories of more than 10 desolate corpses in a row and finally confirmed that this information was true. He pondered for a moment and had an idea in his mind. With a thought, he returned to his main body. Looking at the time, it was 9:15 at night. He immediately turned on his multifunctional watch and dialed the expert's number. There was only one word from the other side, "Speak." Mosher replied, "I found your daughter." The unchanging voice on the other side finally became slightly hurried, "Where is she?" Mosher recalled the name of the city and replied, "That's right. Bombadera City, in the underground desolate corpse lair. The humans in that city offered your daughter to the desolate corpses. The desolate corpses kept her and planned to wait a few days for the desolate corpse king to come for an inspection and offer your daughter to the desolate corpse king to enjoy." Hearing this, the other side was silent for a moment. Not a word was said. He directly hung up the phone. Mosher shook his head slightly. "I helped you so much, but you didn't even thank me. How rude." After that, Mosher didn't take any more action. Instead, he waited for the expert to save his daughter. When the time came, it would probably be chaos. There would definitely be level 4 desolate corpses escaping. He waited for an entire night. It wasn't until 9:00 the next morning that Mosher saw a figure approaching at an extremely fast speed from the distant horizon through the Sea Dragon clone's perspective. This figure was standing on a long sword that was about 5 meters long and 2 feet wide. It looked very high-tech. Behind the long sword, 2 streams of particles were ejected. He was moving at a speed of almost 10 kilometers per second as he sped towards them. Flying on a sword. Emosure couldn't help but feel envious. Although compared to his dragon's shadow step, the speed of flying on a sword was still too slow. But he had to admit that flying on a sword did look high-end and classy. This was much cooler than flying on a hoverboard. Soon, the expert arrived in the sky above the city. When the people in the tribe saw this expert standing in the air, their expressions changed slightly. Especially the leader of the tribe, when he saw this outsider standing in the air, he panicked a little. But although he panicked, he didn't panic. Because he knew that there were almost countless desolate corpses in the nest of desolate corpses below the city. Although this outsider was strong, could he be compared with a large number of desolate corpses? Thinking of this, the leader of the tribe raised his head proudly and looked at the outsider in the sky. He shouted coldly, "Flying is forbidden in the tribe. Especially forbidden for outsiders to fly. Land immediately and hand over your aircraft." In the sky, the expert didn't pay attention to the leader of the tribe at all. Instead, he landed directly and came to the entrance of the tunnel in the city. Seeing that his words were ignored, the leader of the tribe was a little annoyed. As the leader of the tribe, didn't he care about his reputation? Thinking of this, he waved his hand, "Catch him for me." "Yes, leader." The men in the tribe hurriedly responded when they heard the leader's order. Then, with spears and other weapons in their hands, they quickly went to the tunnel at the entrance of the city gate. Chapter 290. Emosure saw that these people in the tribe actually wanted to catch the strong swordsman. He couldn't help but find it a little funny. These people really weren't afraid of death. At this moment, the strong swordsman lowered his head to observe and found the location of the tunnel. Then, he put away his long sword and landed beside the tunnel. At the same time, hundreds of humans had already surrounded him. And the leader of the tribe obviously knew that this person was not to be trifled with, so the hundreds of people he sent were all desolate hunters. A level 4 desolate hunter and more than 10 level 3 desolate hunters. More than 20 level 2 desolate hunters. More than 60 level 1 desolate hunters. If such a lineup was placed in the Flaming Land, it would definitely be a godly lineup. With such a lineup, not to mention Yuzhou province, even across the entire continent, they could be ranked at the top. However, the strong swordsman only glanced at them. He snorted coldly. The long sword in his left hand didn't even move. He waved his right hand in the air. A blue energy more than 10 meters wide suddenly spread out in all directions. It was so fast that these people couldn't dodge at all. Swish, 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 more than 100 desolate hunters were all cut in half at almost the same time. Their protective energy and all kinds of trump cards were a complete joke in front of the strong swordsman. And that wasn't all. Under this energy, all the buildings in the entire city, including the huge 30-meter thick city wall, were directly cut in half. The attack of a strong swordsman was actually so terrifying. Emosure suddenly felt a chill down his spine. With a casual wave of his hand, he actually cut the entire city in half. And more than 100 desolate hunters were wiped out. This kind of strength was really unparalleled. Fortunately, his sea dragon clone was lying on the ground. Otherwise, his sea dragon clone would have been cut in half by the attack just now. After the strong swordsman's attack, he didn't even look at these people. He strode into the tunnel. There was no trace of killing intent on his face. There was no trace of killing intent in his eyes. But with a casual wave of his hand, he almost wiped out the entire tribe. Just how strong was he? Judging from Emosure's current experience, this person's strength was probably infinitely close to the peak of the desolate hunters. In other words, he was very likely a level 10 desolate hunter. Was a level 10 desolate hunter so terrifying? Emosure originally wanted to control the sea dragon clone to follow the sword-riding expert all the way underground. But after thinking about it, he decided against it. At this moment, his main body was still very far away. That expert didn't know that the sea dragon clone belonged to him. What if something went wrong and a beam of energy came flying over? Wouldn't that be too unjust for him? Therefore, he just needed to wait here. After waiting for about 5 minutes, there was still no movement from underground. On the contrary, in the riverside outside the city, in the tree holes, in the caves, many powerful desolate corpses suddenly appeared. Mo Sure was overjoyed. It seemed like that expert was simply too strong. These guys were terrified. Using the blood dragon's eye, he quickly found a fleeing desolate corpse. Then, he took a step forward and crashed through the city gate, running out of the city walls. At this moment, the entire city was in chaos. The guards at the city gate had also been cut in half by the mysterious expert's energy. Therefore, he was not stopped at all and directly ran out of the city. Using camouflage to hide outside the city, he caught up with the level 4 mutated corpse. Suddenly, he burst out and instantly killed it. Then, within more than half an hour, Mo Sure killed more than 10 level 4 mutated corpses in a row. He felt that the energy in his body had increased by a lot. More than 10 minutes later, at the foot of a mountain, there was a cave. Mo Sure had already quietly hidden in the pile of rocks at the entrance of the cave. At this moment, his body had turned into a pile of rocks again. At this moment, a level 4 mutated corpse ran out of the cave in a panic and came to the pile of rocks. Mo Sure pounced on the level 4 mutant corpse from behind. He bit off the head of the corpse in one bite. At this moment, 2 more figures ran out of the cave. Mo Sure quickly hid his body and turned into several pieces of rocks. At the same time, he was ready to attack again. However, when he turned his head to look, he found that the 2 who had just walked out of the cave were not desolate corpses, nor were they desolate beasts. They were 2 humans. A man and a woman. The man had a full beard and held a black longsword in his hand. The woman was prettier and looked a little mischievous. It turned out to be the strong swordsman and his daughter. At this moment, not only did the girl not have the slightest fear, but she was pleasantly surprised. "Dad, why are you here?" The bearded man snorted coldly. "If I didn't come, you would have died long ago." The girl stuck out her tongue and laughed. "I haven't fought in a long time, so I came to Hunting Ground 13 to play." The bearded man snorted again. "Who said that you can only fight in Hunting Ground 13? If you want to learn how to fight, there are many places. Hunting Ground 13 is so dangerous, you." "Dad, I just want to become as strong as you," the girl said. The bearded man looked into the distance. How could he not want his daughter to become stronger? But these places were too dangerous. If he didn't come today, he might not be able to see his daughter for the rest of his life. Finally, after a moment of silence, the bearded man said, "In the future, before you go to dangerous places, tell me." The girl nodded. "Yes, Dad." While the father and daughter were talking, they didn't notice the sea dragon clone that was close at hand. Mo Sure couldn't help but rejoice in his heart. It seemed that the disguise and concealment skill was still very useful. Even this bearded strong man couldn't detect him. At this moment, the bearded man raised his left hand and dialed a number on his multifunctional watch. The girl asked, "Dad, who are you calling?" The bearded strong man smiled gently at his daughter and said, "A brat. If he hadn't told me the news, you would still be suffering in the underground lair of the desolate corpses." The girl looked at the multifunctional watch curiously. Soon, Mo Sure's head appeared on the multifunctional watch. Mo Sure saw this scene from the perspective of the sea dragon clone and couldn't help but be speechless. When did I become a brat? Then his consciousness returned to his main body. The ringtone of the multifunctional watch rang. After pressing the answer button, the bearded strong man's voice came from the other side. "Kid, I owe you a favor. In the future, if you encounter difficulties that you can't solve, come to me. I can help you once." Mo Sure pretended to be generous and replied, "I just provided some information. I didn't help much." Beep. 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 On the other end of the phone, there was a busy tone. "Mo sure." He hung up without waiting for the other party to finish speaking. "Are all big shots so impolite? And what's your name? Where do you live? How many people do you have in your family? How many acres of land do you have per person? How many cows do you have in the field? How can I find you?" Chapter 291. Before Mo sure could finish his words, the bearded man hung up the phone. Mo sure could only shake his head helplessly. His consciousness returned to the sea dragon avatar. The girl looked at the dimmed portrait of Mo sure on the multifunction watch and asked, "Dad, this little brother is a bit handsome. Aren't you going to thank him?" The bearded man said, "My promise is the greatest gratitude to him. Let's go back." The girl curled her lips. "Dad, can you not act like you're seeing an enemy every time you see a handsome little brother?" She then giggled and said, "Are you afraid that they will kidnap your daughter?" The bearded man sneered. "If they dare kidnap my daughter, I'll exterminate their entire family." The girl rolled her eyes. "Then who will dare to marry me in the future?" The bearded man said, "If they want to marry you, they have to be able to protect you. In the future, when you meet a young man who can defeat me, you can go with him." Pfft, the girl rolled her eyes again. "I say, Dad, why don't you just let me become a Buddhist nun? You are a great desolate hunter. How many great desolate hunters are there in the entire continent? I'm afraid that there isn't a single young man who can defeat a great desolate hunter. Sigh, my life is so bitter. How can I have a father like you?" The bearded man only said one sentence. "There is always someone better than you." Then, he took out a long sword and pressed it gently. The long sword unfolded with a creaking sound, turning into a 5-meter-long giant sword. He pulled his daughter and jumped onto the long sword, leaving the ground in an instant. Mo sure saw this scene from the sea dragon avatar's point of view, and he was a bit stunned. Great desolate hunter. A top existence in the entire continent. He had guessed that the bearded man was very strong and was likely a level 10 desolate hunter. But he didn't expect that he had underestimated him. In the entire continent, there were very few people who had reached the level of Great Desolate Hunter. Each of them was an ancestor-level figure of a large sect. From this, it could be seen how strong the bearded man was. Mo sure had previously checked some information about the top experts in the continent. Every Great Desolate Hunter was a powerful existence with a name and a surname. As far as he knew, there were a total of 5 Great Desolate Hunters who used swords. There were also 2 people who used giant swords, but there didn't seem to be one of them. His consciousness quickly returned to his body and opened the search engine of the multifunctional watch. Enter the keyword, Great Desolate Hunter who uses a giant sword, daughter. Soon, the virtual interface projected the search results. He clicked on the top one. One sword freezing 16 prefectures, Han Jiansheng. Mo sure looked at the picture again. The person in the picture was using the black, high-tech sword. When the sword was closed, it was a normal-sized sword. When the sword was extended, it turned into a 5-meter-long aircraft. It was exactly the same as the huge sword of the bearded man. However, the person in the picture looked like a weak scholar with a dignified appearance. It was really hard for people to connect him with the bearded man just now. Mo sure observed him carefully for a moment before he noticed some similarities between his eyes and his forehead. As it turned out, after Han Jiansheng grew a beard, it covered most of his face. In addition, his beard was now almost an inch long. At a glance, it was naturally impossible to see his original appearance. He looked at the following description: Frowny face Han Jiansheng, Level 2 Great Desolate Hunter. Ice Attribute Talent. At the age of 33, he became a Level 1 Great Desolate Hunter. However, he kept a low profile and was not famous. Later, his wife was killed. In order to avenge her death, he used a giant sword to kill 32 top experts of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, slaughtering 17 top forces, and became famous in one battle. The 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud were shaken, and all the top forces were in danger. Since then, he was called, One Sword Freezing 16 Prefectures. Han Jianqing has a wife and a daughter. His daughter is called Han Lubai, a level 3 desolate hunter. Emosure was secretly amazed when he saw this. A giant sword was able to intimidate the 16 prefectures of the serene cloud. What kind of powerful strength was this? One had to know that the flaming beginning continent was huge. The area of each prefecture was almost equivalent to the total area of Earth. One person was able to intimidate the 16 prefectures, which was equivalent to intimidating the area of 16 Earths. This strength was simply terrifying. At the same time, Emosure was also very envious of his daughter. With such a powerful father, his daughter was at most in her 20s, but she was already a level 3 desolate hunter. It was so good to have powerful genes. However, Emosure had the sign-in system. He believed that in the near future, he would be able to surpass Han Lubai. After a while, surpassing Han Jianqing wouldn't be difficult. And now, with Han Jianqing's promise, Emosure had an extremely powerful trump card. Since Han Jianqing had left, Emosure once again returned to the body of the sea dragon clone. Dragons will probed. Just now, Han Jianqing had destroyed the underground nest of the desolate corpses. Many of the level 4 mutated corpses had escaped. Emosure easily detected that there were more than 50 level 4 mutated corpses within a radius of 200 kilometers. After swallowing another 40 level 4 mutated corpses, the same kind of tearing pain came from his body. Half an hour later, the sea dragon clone's level finally increased again. Level 5 mutated beast. Emosure let out a long breath. He had finally reached level 5 mutated beast. Now, it was time to deal with the Qing family. As for Emosure, he was rushing back. Far away in Yuzhou, in the Qing family. The head of the Qing family, Qing Qingqing, received the news of his son's death. This caused the grief and anger in his chest to reach its peak. His youngest son had died not long ago, and now his second son had died. In just a short month, he had lost 2 sons. How could this not make him angry? The murderer of his youngest son's death had not been found yet. But the cause of his second son's death was very obvious. A day ago, his second son went to the first hunting island to catch the 3 suspects. In the end, he never returned. Even the people he brought with him, and even a giant eagle mech, had lost contact with them. Obviously, it was the 3 people on the first hunting island who did it. Hearing this news, Qing Qingqing slammed his right palm on the table. The metal table was immediately dented by him. Come. A person immediately came in and respectfully said, Master. Order all the elites of the Qing family to head to the first hunting island. I want to raise that place to the ground. Yes. In just half an hour, more than 100 people gathered in front of the Qing family's gate. These more than 100 people were all level 8 or above scavenger. This kind of force was the strongest force of the Qing family. However, just as Qing Qingqing was about to lead them and set off, a few elders of the family joined forces to stop Qing Qingqing. Master, the family can't be without a master. If you go, who will preside over the Qing family's affairs? Just send a level 10 expert to lead these people. Why do you have to go out personally? Master, the day of the battle between the top 100 forces is approaching. You have to stay in the family to preside over the overall situation. Chapter 292. Qing Qingqing listened to the persuasion of these family elders and suppressed the anger in his heart. He pondered for a long time. The martial arts tournament of the top 100 forces was held once every 5 years. During this period, the top 100 forces would send their elites to participate in the tournament. Any force that won the tournament would receive attention from all sides, which would have a positive impact on their reputation and other aspects. Most importantly, if a force won the championship, it would gain a lot of benefits. Thinking of this, Qing Qingqing finally nodded slowly. Then let Qing Ming go. Qing Ming, a level 10 hunter. It should be no problem for him to lead the 100 or so hunters above level 8. When the elders saw this, they heaved a sigh of relief. Soon, Qing Ming was called over. Master, don't worry. I'll catch those 3 people for you. Ching's eyes were full of killing intent. Not only will you catch the culprits, but you will also raise the entire hunting island one to the ground. He was almost gnashing his teeth when he said the last 4 words. Ming looked at the master and focused his eyes. Yes. Soon, Ming led the 100 or so hunters, including 10 mechas. They rushed to Hunting Island 1. Half a day later, they arrived at Hunting Island 1. Looking down from the sky, the entire Hunting Island 1 was almost covered in blood red. There was only a small green space in the center of the island. There were traces of human activity on the green space. Ming wouldn't shout at the ground like Kuan. He was expressionless and said calmly, "Giant Eagle Mecha, drop the bombs." The keyboard player next to him answered, "Yes." He controlled the 3 Giant Eagle Mecha and flew toward the green space. In the base, Monk had already known that there were more than 100 uninvited guests above the base. And these uninvited guests were obviously up to no good, as they threw 3 Giant Eagle Mecha at the same time. Monk remembered what Immortal said before he left. If they were below the level of a hunter, just ignore them. According to the detection system in the base, the strongest of the people outside were only 3 level 10 desolate hunters. He couldn't help but smile. Looks like I don't need to do anything. Most of the people in the base naturally noticed the movement in the sky. They were speechless as they looked at the group of people in the sky. They were just a group of scavengers. It was another group of people who had come to deliver their heads. Therefore, the people in the base were still busy with their own things. It didn't take long for the 3 Giant Eagle mechs to reach the top of the base. 3 high-explosive bombs were dropped. Cheng Yin watched as the 3 bombs fell, and a cruel smile appeared on his face. Before every battle, there would be a round of bombardment. This was the Qing clan's way of fighting. It was unknown how many enemies had died in this round of bombardment. Don't look down on the fact that there were only 3 high-explosive bombs. However, the energy of these 3 bombs was enough to level the entire base to the ground. However, right at this moment, everyone from the Qing family narrowed their eyes. When the 3 bombs were 50 meters away from the ground, they seemed to have hit something. It exploded. Moreover, the diameter of each bomb was only 10 meters. The flames and high temperature of the explosion seemed to be enveloped by a layer of invisible energy and quickly disappeared. Ming frowned. There's some kind of protective shield here. Before he finished speaking, whoosh, a fiery red light pillar as thick as a thigh suddenly shot towards the Qing family. The Qing family had no time to dodge. That beam of light shot straight into the crowd of the Qing clan. In an instant, 3 Qing family members were pierced through by the light pillar. 2 of them even had their heads blown off. Oh no, there's an ambush. Retreat. Ming's expression changed as he hurriedly shouted. He really couldn't figure out what had shot out that beam of light. Even if it was a fighter mech, it couldn't shoot such a thick light pillar. If it was any other powerful energy weapon, he would at least be able to see where the light pillar came from. However, he couldn't see the source of the light pillar at all. It was as if it had shot out of thin air. Could it be some kind of invisible weapon? However, the facts soon proved that he was wrong. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, as the Qing family members were retreating, dozens of light pillars were shot at them. The Qing family members suffered heavy casualties. However, those light pillars didn't come from one place. Instead, they came from all directions. If it was some kind of invisible powerful weapon, each one of them would be worth at least 100 million. With so many weapons coming from all directions, how much would that be? Therefore, it was impossible. Then, what was the source of these light pillars? However, Ming didn't have time to think about it. After a round of attacks, more than 30 of the people he brought with him were killed or injured. He could only ask them to run away as fast as they could. Run, use all your means, run. Ming shouted as he pressed the teleportation device in his hand. The next moment, his entire body turned into a bluish-white ball of light and disappeared on the spot. At the same time, a few other Qing family members who had teleportation devices also disappeared on the spot. However, teleportation devices weren't cheap to begin with. Even the Qing family members didn't have one. Therefore, the remaining Qing family members were in for a tragedy. They screamed as they ran away from Hunting Island No. 1. They watched as their companions were blasted into two pieces one by one. Their limbs were blasted off. Their heads were blasted off. Almost everyone's face turned pale. They thought that coming to Hunting Island No. 1 today would be a massacre. However, it turned out that they guessed the beginning but not the ending. A massacre was a massacre, but it was someone else who was slaughtering them. In the end, more than 100 people from the Qing family, more than 100, died on Hunting Island 1. The remaining 30 or so people flew out of Hunting Island No. 1. They thought that as long as they got out of Hunting Island No. 1, they would be able to escape. However, it turned out that they were wrong once again. They were already more than 50 kilometers away from Hunting Island No. 1, but the light pillars were still shooting at them. The speed of the light pillars was so fast that the hunters couldn't compare to it. They could only watch as the light pillars pierced through their bodies. In the end, the Qing family lost more than 30 level 9 hunters in this battle. In addition, more than 50 level 8 hunters were killed. When everything quieted down, the people on Hunting Island No. 1 all had an "I knew it" expression on their faces. Since Mr. Mo's rise, the entire Hunting Island No. 1 seemed to have become insanely powerful. None of the people who came to Hunting Island No. 1 had a good ending. When Little Monk saw this scene from the surveillance device, he was both excited and regretful. It was so King fun. It's a pity that I didn't kill them myself. It's King annoying. Good job. Chapter 293. The Qing family members either died or ran away. Cheng Ming and a few others who had teleportation devices managed to escape back to the Qing family in the nick of time. Cheng Qingqing was in his study, looking through the list of participants for the martial arts tournament. Cheng Ming's panicked and anxious voice came from outside the door. Master, this is bad. Cheng Qingqing had heard too much bad news recently. He had a hunch that something was going to happen. He frowned and said, "Come in and talk." Cheng Ming walked in quickly. His hair was messy and his clothes were untidy. He looked a little disheveled. Cheng Qingqing sized up Cheng Ming a few times. His expression was somewhat unsightly. What happened? Cheng Ming had only left for half a day. According to the distance, he should have just arrived at Hunting Island 1. But he suddenly came back. Obviously, he activated the teleportation device and ran back. Cheng Ming's expression was grim. He replied, "Master, there's something wrong with Hunting Island 1. We underestimated it." Cheng Qingqing's expression was grim. "Tell me more." Cheng Ming nodded. "Yes, Master. When we arrived at Hunting Island 1, I sent 3 giant eagle mechs to drop bombs. But when we were halfway there, the 3 bombs exploded, and the explosion range was only 10 meters. It looks like it's being blocked by some invisible force. Then, thousands of light beams blasted at us. Those light beams could easily kill us." When Cheng Qingqing heard this, his expression became even uglier. "So, there are many mechs on Hunting Island 1? He had expected there to be mechs on Hunting Island 1, but he did not expect there to be so many of them. Cheng Ming shook his head. "No, it's not mechs. It seems to be some kind of powerful weapon that can turn invisible, and there are many of them." Cheng Qingqing asked again. "What about the mechs you brought there?" Cheng Ming heard Master's question and recalled the scene he saw in a hurry. His voice was much lower. "They seem to have some kind of weapon that can interfere with the protective shield of our mechs. Almost all of our mechs were shot down by them." Cheng Qingqing's heart sank when he heard this. He did not expect Hunting Island 1 to be so despicable. If he had known this would happen, he would have done it himself and flattened the entire Hunting Island No. 1. If the first hunting island had a weapon that could even make a LV-10 hunter turn around and run away, then only a hunter like him could do it. Moreover, he was originally full of ambition and was prepared to let the outstanding disciples of the Qing family take part in this martial arts competition to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. As a result, more than 100 elite disciples of the Qing family had died on Hunting Island No. 1. Then, his plan to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat that he had conceived for several years would fail. There was no doubt that the Qing clan would be defeated in the martial arts tournament. Thinking of this, Qing was furious. Looking at the people on the screen in his study room, he gritted his teeth and said, sure, Emma, and this idiot. If I, Qing, don't kill you, I swear I'm not human. At the same time, on Hunting Island No. 1. After the enemy retreated, Guo Jitao ordered the people in the base to come out and clean up the mess. As for the dozens of mechs that the opponent brought, they were shot down by the mechs in the base after their defenses were broken by Tyrant's spider drones. Tyrant looked at the mechs with a hint of joy in his eyes. If we put these mechs together, we should be able to put together 7 or 8 usable mechs. As a result, there were 7 or 8 more mechs in the base. It could be said that at this time, if nothing else was taken into consideration, Hunting Island No. 1 could completely crush the Qing clan, which was ranked 84th in Yuzhou, in terms of high-end combat power. 2 days later, Sure returned to the base. After not seeing Sure for a while, Happy naturally treated him well. He cared for him in every possible way. Sure enjoyed Happy's care while listening to Guo Jitao's report. Guo Jitao told him about the major events that happened in the past few days. In the end, he said, among the more than 100 people, some of them had teleportation devices. They activated the devices and escaped from Hunting Island No. 1. Mr. Mo, we have to be careful these days. According to my estimation, those who escaped will soon come back with the others. Sure smiled and shook his head. They won't. Guo Jitao was puzzled. Why are you so sure, Mr. Mo? Sure replied. Because I'll kill my way to their nest and wipe out their entire clan. Hearing this, Guo Jitao's heart skipped a beat. He said, Mr. Mo, won't that be too risky? Sure smiled and shook his head. Don't worry. With Sure's character, he naturally wouldn't do something too risky. But now that the sea dragon clone had reached the strength of a level 5 mutated wild beast, what was there to be afraid of? Seeing that he couldn't persuade Sure, Guo Jitao didn't say anything more. He only asked, Mr. Mo, how many people do you want to take with you? I'll go now. Sure shook his head and said, I'll be fine by myself. Huh? Guo Jitao was even more surprised. Mr. Mo was indeed very strong, but the Qing clan was ranked 84th in Yuzhou after all. There were even desolate hunters in the clan. Although Mr. Mo was powerful, he was still far from being a desolate hunter. It was simply too risky for him to fight against the entire Qing clan alone. Even if he knew that Mr. Mo's real strength was far from what he showed on the surface, it was still too risky for him to fight against the entire Qing clan alone. Thinking of this, he hurriedly advised. Mr. Mo, I'm afraid, this is not appropriate. The Qing clan of Yuzhou is ranked 84th in the entire Yuzhou. Not only do they have desolate hunters, but they also have more than 20 mechas. Mr. Mo, if you fight against such a big force alone, I'm afraid. Sure waved his hand and said, Don't worry. Don't worry. Normally, he was too lazy to explain anything. He would just kill them directly. Besides, Sure had another reason for going to Yuzhou this time, to sign in at those mecha factories. Therefore, although Sure had just returned, he didn't stay for long. He directly performed the dragon shadow steps and teleported to Yuzhou. According to the map navigation on the multifunctional watch, he easily found the Qing clan of Yuzhou. The Qing clan was located at the foot of a mountain, in the Qing clan town by the river. 1,000 years ago, the ancestor of the Qing clan started farming here. Gradually, a village was formed. When the Qing clan produced a desolate hunter, people came because of his reputation. Gradually, a town was formed, which was called Qing Clan Town. When Mo Shi was 150 kilometers away from Qing Clan Town, he spread out his dragon's will and probed the entire Qing clan. In his investigation, thousands of Qing clan members were gathered in front of the Qing clan's gate. After this chapter is published, there are no more manuscripts left. Tomorrow, I can only write and publish as I wish. As for the typos and the like, please bear with it. After I finish my work tonight, I will correct the typos. Chapter 294. According to Mo Shi's investigation, thousands of people had gathered in front of the Qing family compound in the Qing family village of Qingtown. There were also more than 10 combat mechas. The people who had just escaped from the first hunting island were among them. A middle-aged man with a cold face was standing in front of the thousands of people. His eyes were filled with anger. The first hunting island killed my son. If I don't kill him, how can I call myself a father? A mere first hunting island dares to bully the Qing family. I, Qing, will kill my way to the first hunting island and raze it to the ground. The thousands of people below all raised their right arms and shouted, "Raze it to the ground! Raze it to the ground! Raze it to the ground!" Especially Qing Ming and the others who had just escaped. How could Qing clan of Yuzhou province be bullied by number 1 hunting island? This time, with the head of the family, a desolate hunter, they did not believe that they could not destroy the first hunting island. Mo Shi sneered when he saw this. He jumped. In just 2 steps, he appeared in front of the Qing family compound. The thousands of people of the Qing family were stunned when they saw the young man who had suddenly appeared. When the head of the family, Qing, saw Mo Shi, he could no longer suppress the anger in his chest. Although he had not seen Mo Shi before, according to the video provided by the second hunting island, he knew that this person was from the first hunting island. And he was probably the murderer of his 2 sons. His 2 sons, and he had not gone to find him, but he had taken the initiative to come. This was too much. Preposterous. Boy, did you kill my sons? Qing asked angrily with bloodshot eyes. Even though he was already a desolate hunter, it was still hard for him to accept that his 2 sons had been killed. Mo Shi nodded indifferently and said in a flat tone, "You guessed right." The thousands of people of the Qing family heard this and their eyes were filled with anger. This boy is courting death. You killed the second and third young masters. The Qing family will not let you off. Boy, die. Someone had already stepped forward amidst the roars. It was a level 8 scavenger. Mo Shi didn't wait for him to condense his genetic martial art. His silhouette flashed. He instantly disappeared from where he stood. When he reappeared, he was already behind the level 8 hunter. He then punched the back of the level 8 scavenger. The level 8 hunter was slightly shocked. This kid's movement technique was really fast. But that was all. From the moment Mo Shi made his move, he had already felt that Mo Shi was a level 5 hunter. A mere level 5 hunter dared to be presumptuous in front of him. Thinking of this, he abruptly turned around. His right fist punched out towards Mo Shi. Bang! Crack! When the 2 fists collided, the sound of bones breaking could be heard. Then, he looked at the level 8 scavenger. His right arm was snapped off at a horrifying angle as it was bent backwards. At the same time, his body flew more than 30 meters away. Pfff, a mouthful of blood spurted out, just like in the movies. It formed a bloody mist that spread under the sunlight. When the surrounding people saw that this person had already fainted, they were all shocked. This kid was really strong. The family elders rushed over and checked the person's breath. There was no breath. They touched his chest. His heart had already stopped beating. Then they touched his dantian. There was no longer a trace of energy surging there. This was enough to show that this level 8 scavenger had already died from his dantian ruptured. The more the elder checked, the more shocked he became. The shock on his face became more and more intense. After a moment, he looked at Mo Shi in disbelief and said to Qing, died from ruptured dantian. As soon as he said this, the scene suddenly became silent. When embark made his move just now, they could all feel that this guy was only a level 5 hunter. A mere level 5 hunter actually killed a level 8 scavenger in an instant. This was really too exaggerated. On the Flaming Origin continent, it was very common to fight with people of a higher level. But fighting with people of a higher level meant that they were challenging people with stronger abilities. So, usually, when fighting with people of a higher level, it was very rare to be able to kill the opponent in an instant. Not to mention killing an opponent who was 3 levels higher than him. However, this was only what the family members with lower abilities saw. The stronger clansmen of the Qing family saw it from a different perspective. This guy did not even condense a genetic weapon when he killed their family member who was 3 levels higher than him. In other words, he was purely using his physical strength to kill their family member who was 3 levels higher than him. This was what shocked them the most. This kid's physical strength was actually so terrifying. In other words, if he used a genetic weapon, or even an energy weapon, wouldn't he be able to challenge a level 10 scavenger? Hiss, 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 the few elders of the Qing family all sucked in a breath of cold air. Challenging someone who was 5 levels higher than him, even in the entire history of the continent, was probably only a few times. If this kid could really do it, then he would definitely be a peerless genius. At this time, Qingming also subconsciously took a small step back. He was still scared. As a level 10 scavenger, he suffered a great loss when he went to the first hunting island today. He was already burning with anger. When he saw that embark dared to challenge the Qing family single-handedly, he was even more furious. Therefore, he wanted to be the first to go up and kill this kid. In the end, that family member beat him to it. Now, it seemed that he was lucky that family member beat him to it. Otherwise, if he went up rashly and met this crazy kid, he might not be able to win. Qing saw that embark had killed a clansman with a single punch. So, he was surprised in his heart. But, his anger rose even higher. This was an old grudge that had yet to be avenged, and now there was a new one. Thinking of this, he roared angrily, "Keyboard player, kill this kid for me." When the keyboard player heard this, he quickly replied, "Yes." Then he opened the keyboard on his belt and his fingers quickly danced on it. However, at this time, embark's figure had already appeared behind the keyboard player. He directly threw a punch at the keyboard player. Almost at the same time, the head of the Qing family had also appeared behind the keyboard player. He reached out his right hand and grabbed embark's arm. Seeing this, embark's figure immediately flashed. In an instant, he was among the more than 1,000 people of the Qing family. He opened up his fists and threw a punch at the Qing family members. Bang! With one punch, he killed a level 2 scavenger. Killed a level 2 scavenger. Obtained 2 drops of Titan Dragon blood. Bang! With one punch, he killed a level 7 scavenger. Killed a level 7 scavenger. Obtained 7 drops of Titan Dragon blood. Bang! Killed a level 8 scavenger. Obtained 8 drops of Titan Dragon blood. As embark waved his fists, his mind was already filled with the information about the Titan Dragon blood. The Qing family members, on the other hand, were in a panic, and their expressions changed drastically. Chapter 295. Embark jumped into the crowd of the Qing family like a tiger in a flock of sheep. He punched out with both fists, killing everything in sight. Those Qing family members, as long as they were hunters below level 8, couldn't even take one punch from him. Even if some of them had already condensed a genetic weapon, in front of embark, it was only a matter of one punch. Moreover, his fists contained some kind of terrifying hidden force. As long as they hit the opponent, some kind of shock wave would be transmitted, shattering the opponent's dantian. So as long as they were hit by his fists, there was almost no chance of survival. The keyboard player controlled more than 10 mechas and aimed at embark, but he didn't dare to shoot. Because if he shot now, he might accidentally injure the Qing family members. Seeing this, the head of the Qing family, Ching, couldn't help but be furious. Ever since he became a hunter, it had always been the Ching family bullying others. When had anyone dared to bully the Ching family? Today, this kid, a mere level 5 hunter, dared to come to their door and kill so many Ching family members. Preposterous. How preposterous. Thinking of this, the head of the Ching family jumped and almost instantly appeared in front of Mo Shi. Mo Shi also felt that something was wrong. He immediately used the dragon shadow step. In an instant, he escaped from the crowd. The next moment, he had already entered the Ching family's courtyard. The entire Ching family's courtyard was filled with buildings and looked like a village. Mo Shi entered and punched the Ching family members whenever he met them. Puff, a level 1 hunter exploded, blood splattering on the snow-white wall next to him like a blooming flower. A prompt immediately appeared in his mind. Killed a level 1 hunter. Obtained 1 drop of Titan dragon blood. Another punch landed on the chest of a Ching family member. It directly penetrated the chest of the Ching family member. Killed a level 3 hunter. Obtained 3 drops of Titan dragon blood. This was the purpose of Mo Shi jumping into the Ching family. Originally, he only needed to summon the sea dragon clone to easily flatten the entire Ching family. But in that case, he wouldn't be able to obtain the dragon blood. Therefore, he came to the Ching family to kill these Ching family members 1 punch at a time. At this time, Ching was already beyond angry. In fact, their Ching family's courtyard also had a protective energy shield. However, that was to defend against external attacks. But now that this kid had already jumped into the Ching family's courtyard, the protective energy shield had already lost its effect. Who would have thought that the Ching family of Yuzhou would be defeated by a mere LV5 scavenger? Brat, prepare to die. Ching roared. In a flash, he had already entered the Ching clan's courtyard. His gaze locked onto Mo Shi's position. Then, he condensed an energy weapon on his right arm and blasted it towards Mo Shi. When the Ching family members saw that their family head had personally made a move, they immediately calmed down. The clan head had never failed before. What's more, this kid was just a level 5 hunter. How could he withstand the attack of the family head? Mo Shi thought so too. Seeing that this hunter Ching had already made his move, he naturally did not dare to be careless. What a joke! After all, he was a desolate hunter. He didn't dare to face an energy beam head-on. Thinking of this, he quickly moved his mind and released the Sea Dragon avatar from his personal reservoir. The moment the Sea Dragon avatar appeared, it saw Ching's energy beam shooting towards it. It roared excitedly. He opened his mouth and swallowed the beam of energy. Damn! F*CK, what the hell is this? Is it a wild beast? Is there such an abnormal wild beast? After all, it was the first time in their lives that these people had seen a monster that could swallow energy. Mo Shi was also stunned. He knew that the Sea Dragon avatar could swallow the opponent's energy. But in the past, it had only swallowed the opponent's energy after killing them. But this time, it had directly swallowed the energy beam shot by the opponent. Was this even possible? But Mo Shi quickly understood. This was because the Ching family head's strength was much weaker than the Sea Dragon avatar's. Its energy beam, in the eyes of others, was completely destructive. But for the Sea Dragon avatar, which was 4 levels higher than him and had thick skin, it was completely not enough. Seeing this, the Ching family head's heart trembled. What the hell was this? Seeing that it had just swallowed his energy beam, its strength was actually much stronger than his. It was probably a mutant wild beast above level 2. This kid actually had such a trump card. No wonder he dared to compete with the Ching family. But do you think I'm the only wild beast hunter in the Ching family? It was a big mistake to think that way. Thinking of this, Ching suddenly knelt down and looked at the deepest part of the Ching family's courtyard. That was the Ching family's forbidden area. Except for the Ching family head, no one was allowed to enter. Even Ching himself only had a chance to enter once a month. He shouted loudly, "The Qing family is in danger, please come out." When the Qing family heard He Qingqing's words, they were all stunned. When the monster first appeared, they didn't think much of it. After all, the family head was a level 1 wild beast hunter. With his strength, it shouldn't be difficult for him to deal with the monster. But now, the family head actually said that the Qing family was in danger and asked the powerful existence of the Qing family to come out. It was obvious that the strength of this monster was far beyond that of the family head. But soon, everyone calmed down. The Qing family didn't only have this little strength on the surface. Their strongest trump card was actually the Qing family's ancestor. This ancestor was now a level 3 wild beast hunter. Even in the whole of Yuzhou, there were only a few people who could reach the level of a level 3 wild beast hunter. Even if the ancestor came out, he wouldn't be able to stop this mutated desolate beast. They had never thought of such an outcome. After all, a level 3 wild beast hunter wasn't something a level 1 wild beast hunter could compare to. This mutated desolate beast could withstand the family head's attack, but in front of the ancestor, it could only kneel. When Mo Shi heard the Qing family head's shout, he smiled coldly. On his back, the blood dragon wings appeared. He directly rose tens of thousands of meters into the air, overlooking everything below. It was better for him to stay away from a battle between wild beast hunters. He didn't want to get involved. At this moment, in the deepest part of the Qing family's courtyard, a figure slowly floated in the air. This person was dressed in brown clothes, and his white hair was casually draped behind his head. His face looked bony, as if there wasn't a trace of flesh, just skin wrapped around bones. This person was the Qing family's ancestor, Qing Fan. A level 3 wild beast hunter. At this moment, Qing Fan was looking down at the entire Qing family's courtyard. Especially when he looked down at the mutated desolate beast, which was only about 15 meters long. The eyelids in the beast's sunken eye sockets slowly opened. 2 rays of light shot out from the turbid eyes. Chapter 296. Qing Fan, the ancestor of the Qing family, slowly opened his eyes. In the next moment, 2 beams of light shot out from his turbid eyes. Then, a flame quickly covered his entire mechanical arm. Soon, after the flame dissipated, his right arm had already condensed a genetic martial art. This was how a hunter condensed a genetic martial art. Compared to a hunter, the speed was several times faster. Qing Fan's genetic martial art was a long spear. The long spear was pitch black and about 3 feet long. The moment the long spear condensed, Qing Fan's entire aura changed. He was no longer that old and skinny old man. Instead, his figure was tall and straight, like a long spear, piercing the sky. He did not look at the sea dragon clone, but instead stared at Mo Shi. Although he also knew that the biggest threat now was this mutated desolate beast, he was still very confident. But he also knew that the person controlling this beast was this kid in front of him. His voice boomed like a clap of thunder. "How dare you be so arrogant?" Before he finished his words, his body shot up. In the air, the long spear in his hand pierced toward Mo Shi. Whoosh, the long spear extended by more than 500 meters in the air. It pierced toward Mo Shi. Ding, the tip of the spear pierced Mo Shi's chest. Everyone present rejoiced in their hearts. After being pierced by the Qing family ancestor's spear, this kid was finished. However, the Qing family ancestor was the only one who focused his gaze. What was going on? His long spear had pierced this kid. But it did not pierce his body. It only stopped on the surface of his body. It did not even pierce his skin. How was this possible? Could it be that this kid had some kind of armor that could not be seen with the naked eye? What kind of armor could withstand a strike from a level 3 desolate hunter? And even if he had such an armor that could withstand the tip of his spear. However, the huge force carried by the spear would definitely send this kid flying hundreds of meters away. But now, this kid was actually standing in the air, his body did not even sway. What was going on? This was completely beyond Qing Fan's understanding. Actually, Ching Fan couldn't be blamed for being short-sighted. Mo Shi's skill was simply too overpowered. What Mo Shi had just used was the absolute defense that he had obtained after his sea dragon avatar devoured a mutated corpse with a defensive talent in the 13th hunting ground. This skill had an extremely long cooldown. It was an astonishing 1 year. However, it was powerful enough to withstand a single attack from any creature on the Flaming Origin continent. That was awesome. As long as Mo Shi activated this skill, even the most powerful experts of the Flaming Origin continent would be able to kill them. It was impossible for the other party to kill him in one hit. Hence, absolute defense was similar to absolute defense when Happy activated Heaven's Prophet form, even though they were different methods. At this moment, Mo Shi was inwardly shocked. Actually, he didn't want to activate this skill. After all, the cooldown time was as long as a year. Once it was used up, it could not be used within a year. However, the other party had come too quickly and too suddenly. The distance of 10,000 meters was covered in an instant. Mo Shi had no choice but to activate this skill. At this moment, he used absolute defense to block the other party's fatal blow. Seeing that Ching Fan's black spear had already lit up with a red and white light, it was obvious that he was about to activate his energy weapon. He suddenly felt a chill in his heart. One had to know that the energy weapon of a desolate hunter was much stronger than that of a normal hunter. A hunter's energy weapon could only be released 10 times in a battle at most. However, a hunter's energy weapon could be released at least 100 times. And its strength was far stronger than that of a hunter's energy weapon. Thinking of this, Mo Shi immediately controlled the Sea Dragon avatar. The Sea Dragon avatar jumped up thousands of meters almost instantly. It pounced straight towards Ching Fan in the air. Its speed was so fast that even Ching Fan could only dodge it by a hair's breadth. He didn't have time to use his energy weapon to deal with Mo Shi, so he directly aimed at the Sea Dragon avatar. However, at this moment, the Sea Dragon avatar opened its mouth. Boom! A bolt of lightning shot out directly and hit Ching Fan in an instant. Buzz buzz buzz, on Ching Fan's body, streaks of electricity flowed like small snakes. Shocked, Ching Fan hurriedly retreated. At the same time, he flew high into the sky. However, the Sea Dragon avatar once again spat out a bolt of lightning and hit Ching Fan again. Ching Fan was hit twice in a row. He felt his whole body go numb, and the energy in his body was very stagnant. He could only land on the ground. Mo Shi saw that this man and beast were fighting happily. He couldn't help but shake his head secretly. With the strength of the Sea Dragon avatar, which was 2 levels higher than the other party, it could easily kill him in an instant. However, the Sea Dragon avatar's intelligence was limited after all. When it wasn't under his control, its combat strength dropped significantly. Therefore, although it had the obvious upper hand, it still couldn't kill it in a short period of time. It seemed that he had to give it a hand. Thinking of this, Mo Shi took out the dragon's cave. He let his main body enter the dragon's cave. Then his consciousness switched to the Sea Dragon avatar's body. The Sea Dragon avatar's entire body suddenly trembled. The entire Sea Dragon avatar's temperament suddenly changed. It was no longer as rigid as the four-legged lizard from before. Just from its gaze, it could be seen that it was obviously more intelligent than before. Ching Fan also realized this point. His heart was in a state of panic. Why did this mutated wild beast suddenly seem to have the intelligence of a human? At this moment, Mo Shi's level 4 dragon will spread out in an instant. Ching Fan suddenly felt a stabbing pain in his head. At the same time, Mo Shi controlled the Sea Dragon avatar to release several thick electric currents directly at Ching Fan. Buzz buzz, Ching Fan's head was already hurting because of the Dragon Will's attack on his consciousness. At this moment, he couldn't react in time and was directly electrocuted until his body was trembling. In the next moment, Mo Shi controlled the Sea Dragon avatar and opened its cave-like huge mouth. Boom, a thick beam of bluish-white light was shot out directly. This beam of light was much thicker than the energy beam shot out by Ching Fan just now. Before Ching Fan could react, the thick energy beam engulfed Ching Fan. No, only a scream of despair could be heard. In that thick energy beam, Ching Fan's clothes instantly melted. Then, the skin of his body also melted. His muscle tissue was scorched and turned to ashes. In the end, the white bones also turned to ashes. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, after Emosher took control of the Sea Dragon avatar, he killed Ching Fan in just 2 seconds. Everyone in the Ching family thought that when their ancestor came out of seclusion, the earth would shake and the sky would spin. This kid would be finished. In the end, they never expected that their ancestor would come out of seclusion so arrogantly, but in less than a minute, he would be gone. This F*King plot shouldn't be like this. Chapter 297. Emosher controlled the Sea Dragon clone and killed the Ching family's patriarch. The rest of the Ching family members' expressions changed drastically. They had hoped that the Ching family's patriarch would kill this kid after he came out of seclusion. But in just a minute, their patriarch was killed. The Ching family's patriarch, Ching, was also shocked. Originally, he wanted to take advantage of the battle between the old ancestor and the mutated wild beast to kill that brat. As a result, when he flew to the place where Emosher was just a moment ago, Emosher suddenly disappeared. This made him feel a little strange. The next moment, the patriarch was killed. His expression changed drastically. He didn't dare to stay any longer. He turned around and fled. On the flaming land, the higher one's cultivation level was, the more they cherished their life. After all, after becoming a hunter, one's lifespan would reach 200 years. And after becoming a great hunter, one's lifespan would break through 500 years. Most people's state of mind would change when they reached the level of a hunter. In their eyes, power struggles were nothing more than passing clouds. Their biggest goal was to increase their strength by another realm and increase their lifespan by a few hundred years. Even if they stood up for the forces behind them, it was only because they could obtain more resources by relying on the forces behind them, which could be used to improve their own realms. For example, the Ching family's patriarch was unwilling to come out if there was nothing important. If he had the time, he might as well cultivate. The reason he came out now was to protect the Ching family. This way, he could obtain more cultivation resources. Ching had just become a level 1 hunter, so his state of mind hadn't changed. That was why he was so angry and hateful after his son died. But now that the patriarch was dead, the most important thing in his mind was to save his life. Only by saving his life would he have unlimited possibilities in the future. So when he saw the patriarch die, his first reaction was to run. And he ran in the direction of the sky. This mutated desolate beast was strong, but it couldn't fly. As long as he flew into the sky, it couldn't do anything to him. However, it turned out that he was too naive. When Ching was more than 10,000 meters above the ground, the Sea Dragon clone suddenly opened its mouth. A sharp, ear-piercing sound came from its throat. Creak, this ear-piercing sound was like a sharp sword, piercing Ching who was in the sky. When Ching heard this voice, he immediately felt the energy in his dantian surging. It was as if they were out of his control, and they were darting all over his body. Energy rampage. To a cultivator, the most terrifying thing was when the energy went berserk. The flow of energy in the human body had a certain direction and order. There must be no chaos. If he panicked, he would suffer internal injuries at the very least and die at the very worst. At this moment, under the vibration of the Sea Dragon clone's sound wave attack, the energy in Ching's body gushed out of his dantian. They were running amok in his meridians and muscle tissues. No. In the sky, Ching only felt a sharp pain in his body. Moreover, the location of the pain was different. 1 second, it was a headache. The next second, it was a pain in his heart. And the next second, it was a pain in his little brother. His entire body fell from the sky. Bang! He landed heavily on the ground. He smashed a human-shaped hole in the ground that was paved with stones. Even though he was in the human-shaped hole, he didn't stay put. The intense pain in his body made him roar, struggle, and roll. At this moment, the sea dragon clone had rushed over. A tentacle instantly shot out. Although Ching 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 was in pain, he still saw the terrifying tentacle. He hurriedly rolled away and dodged the attack in a sorry state. But at this moment, the suction cup on the tentacle suddenly emitted a huge suction force. It sucked Ching 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 over. Then, a blood-colored vine shot out from the suction cup. Chi! It pierced into Ching Ching Ching's mouth. Then, hundreds and thousands of blood-colored tentacles grew from the blood-colored vine. Like the roots of a big tree, they spread out in Ching Ching Ching's body. One could see several tentacles crawling directly over his eyeballs. Then, they spread to his entire face. As for his body, it quickly shriveled up. At this point, the head of the Ching family, the level 1 desolate hunter Ching Ching Ching, was dead. At this moment, Emosure heaved a sigh of relief. He transferred his consciousness into his main body. The level 4 dragons will directly envelop the entire Ching family within a radius of 100 kilometers. Within this radius of 100 kilometers, a dragon's will barrier was formed. As long as it was a hunter below level 9, it would be impossible to break through this dragon's will barrier and escape. At the same time, Emosure's figure flashed and arrived in front of the Ching family's keyboard player. He reached out and picked up the keyboard player whose fingers were still frantically moving on the keyboard, trying to control the mech. He gently squeezed. Crack! The keyboard player's neck was directly crushed into a bloody mess. After dealing with the biggest threat at the moment, the remaining level 9 and level 10 hunters were these level 9 and level 10 hunters. He came here today and would not let any of the Ching family members escape. Soon, he had already arrived in front of a level 10 hunter. That level 10 hunter had already condensed an energy weapon. Seeing Emosure arrive, he hurriedly raised his energy weapon. But Emosure's sharp claws had already condensed. He didn't use any energy at all. The sharp claws suddenly swung out. An invisible force directly attacked the level 10 hunter. And the level 10 hunter also shot an energy light beam at Emosure. However, in front of Emosure's huge invisible force, the energy light beam was pitifully small. It was instantly swallowed. Even the level 10 hunter's body was swallowed by the invisible force. Rip! Under the sharpness of the invisible force, the level 10 hunter's body was directly split into dozens of pieces. It flew in all directions. At the same time, Emosure did not wait for the crowd to react and his figure moved again. He arrived behind Qingming. Qingming originally saw that the family head and the ancestor were already dead and was frantically running away. But at this moment, he suddenly felt danger coming from behind. With his combat experience, it was already too late to turn around. He hurriedly rolled to the side, trying to avoid the attack from behind. However, Emosure's invisible force occupied a distance of more than 10 meters. He could not avoid it at all by rolling to the side. He was still instantly swallowed and torn into pieces. It took him 5 minutes to get rid of the level 10 and level 9 hunters. Then, it was time to deal with the hunters below level 9. It was said that there were about 3,000 people from the Ching family in the Ching family town. Based on the calculations of each level 4 hunter, they could get 12,000 drops of dragon blood. Thinking of this, Emosure's figure flashed and instantly arrived behind 2 people from the Ching family. He punched with his left fist. Bang! He punched with his right fist. Bang! Chapter 298. Emosure punched out with his left fist, killing a level 3 hunter. He punched out with his right fist, killing a level 7 hunter. As long as it was a hunter below level 9, he would be able to kill them with one punch. Of course, there were also those who were older. He would kill an old friend with one punch. As for the Ching family members who were hundreds of kilometers away, they heard about the tragic situation of the Ching family. They hurriedly packed their things and were about to escape. Before today, they were lamenting because they could not get close to the Qing family's courtyard. After all, the closer they were to the Qing family's courtyard, the higher their status in the Qing family. But now, they were secretly rejoicing. Luckily, they were still 100 kilometers away from the Qing family's courtyard. This way, they would have time to escape. However, just as they stepped on their flying skateboards and flew into the air, bang, it was as if they had crashed into an invisible wall. Their whole bodies immediately fell down. They relied on their valiant strength to stabilize their bodies. However, everyone's heart was slightly shocked. Not good, there's an invisible barrier. The people behind him hurriedly stopped. Then, one by one, they tried to use their genetic weapons to stab forward. Sure enough, their genetic weapons all hit an invisible barrier. Then, they tried to use their genetic weapons to attack this invisible barrier. But regardless of whether it was their genetic weapons or energy weapons, they were unable to break this invisible barrier. A psychic grandmaster tried to check, and his face immediately turned serious. Seeing this, the rest asked, "What's wrong?" That psychic grandmaster replied, "It's a psychic barrier." Someone said, "Then quickly break this psychic barrier. Aren't you at level 7 psychokinesis?" That psychic grandmaster's face turned even more serious. My psychic power is unable to break this barrier." Hearing this, the rest of the people felt a trace of despair in their hearts. According to the news they had just received, an expert had already killed his way to the Qing family's courtyard. The head of the Qing family, Qing Qingcheng, and the ancestor of the Qing family, Qing Fan, had both been killed by that expert. One must know that the head of the family and the ancestor were both experts at the level of a hunter. That expert was able to kill the head of the family and the ancestor. He was definitely at the level of a hunter. In front of a desolate hunter, these desolate hunters and psychic grandmasters were like ants. At the same time, in the Qing residence. Without the two desolate master experts holding the fort, Mo Shi was like a child or an old friend. At the same time, with every punch, he would obtain at least 1 drop and at most 7 drops of colossal dragon blood. If those hunters had attacked Mo Shi together, Mo Shi would not have been able to defeat them with just his fists. However, those hunters had just seen Mo Shi's powerful mutant dire beast. At this moment, how could he still have the heart to fight? All they could do was flee. However, their speed was far inferior to Mo Shi's, and their strength was also far inferior to Mo Shi's. In the end, they were defeated by Mo Shi one by one. At this moment, there were 5 psychic grandmasters who saw how terrifying Mo Shi's strength was. They looked at each other and tried to use their telekinesis to stop Mo Shi. However, when their telekinesis spread out, they suddenly encountered a terrifying pressure. If they continued to spread out their telekinesis, each of them would explode and die. Therefore, they had to quickly retract their telekinesis to protect their bodies. Therefore, Mo Shi continued to punch a child or an old friend. To cut the weeds, one had to dig up the roots. Naturally, he would not leave any loose ends. Today, he came to kill all the Qing family members. Some people might think that it was too cruel. On the other hand, if the Qing family's strength was far beyond Mo Shi's, would they let anyone on Hunting Island No. 1 go? The Qing family of Yuzhou was famous for this. It was not only because they were ranked 84th in Yuzhou. It was also because they were ruthless and decisive. If they had a grudge with any force, they would not leave anything behind. Therefore, even those forces ranked higher than the Qing family did not dare to offend them. Thus, now that Mo Shi had the opportunity, he naturally had to eliminate them by the roots. Bang, puff, crack, Mo Shi's massacre continued. He still killed a child or an old friend with one punch. Although the visual impact was not as strong as killing in one move. However, for the Qing family members, the psychological pressure was much greater. After all, they could only watch their own family members die one after another in front of them, and they could not even escape. Naturally, extreme fear arose in their hearts. After more than half an hour, Mo Shi had killed more than 3,000 people of the Qing family, and only a little more than 1,000 people were left. The remaining people could not escape even if they wanted to, and all of them fell into deep despair. Just as Emosure was in the midst of his killing, 3 figures were flying quickly in the sky. The 3 figures were all dressed in white. On both sides were 2 young men. Their clothes were whiter than snow, and they looked elegant. In the middle was a woman. Her white clothes fluttered in the wind, and she looked like a fairy. They glanced down and saw the blood flowing like a river. The walls, the ground, the trees, and the grass were all stained with blood. Corpses were strewn all over the ground. Some of their heads exploded, and some had a big hole in their chests. Most of them had their bodies torn in half or broken into 2 halves. The fairy-like woman shook her head. Who could be so vicious? The man in white next to her pointed at Emosure, who had just caught up with a member of the Qing family and punched his head. Saintess, it's him. The woman frowned slightly. She brought the 2 people and flew above Emosure's head. He said, "You've killed enough. Stop it." Her voice was clear and distant, as if it came from the heavens. In fact, when the 3 of them entered Emosure's dragon wool barrier, Emosure had already detected them. The dragon wool barrier could be entered, but not exited. At this moment, Emosure punched again, and the head of a member of the Qing family exploded. Only then did he look up at the 3 people in the sky. The blood dragon's eye scanned them. The 2 men on the left and right were both level 1 hunters. The woman in the middle was a level 10 psychic master. She was the strongest psychic master Emosure had ever seen in his life. Emosure said, "The 3 of you are," the man on the left said, "We are disciples of the White Lotus School of the Virgin. This is our candidate for saintess." Emosure frowned slightly. The White Lotus School of the Virgin should be ranked 10th in the entire Yuzhou. It was said that they had 15 hunters on the surface. As for how many hunters were hidden, that was unknown. Their holy mother, the White Lotus, was a level 5 desolate hunter. However, this was not the main reason why they were ranked 3rd. The main reason was that the White Lotus School of the Virgin was known for their medical skills. They could treat many cultivators' illnesses. Moreover, the entire White Lotus School of the Virgin was kind and helpful. They often helped other factions. Almost half of the factions in Yuzhou had received their help and owed them favors. If they encountered any difficulties, half of the factions in Yuzhou would come to help them. Chapter 299. The Holy Mother's School of White Lotus ranked 10th in Yuzhou because of its benevolence and charity. Nearly half of the factions in Yuzhou owed them favors. The other half didn't owe them favors and didn't want to be enemies with them. After all, when people cultivated, they would often suffer from all kinds of cultivation illnesses. If they suffered from a difficult illness, they would have to ask the Holy Mother's School of White Lotus for help. Thus, even the top 10 factions had good relations with the Holy Mother's School of White Lotus. It could be said that offending the Holy Mother's School of White Lotus was tantamount to offending all the factions in Yuzhou. If there was nothing else, Emosure naturally wouldn't want to offend them. But now that he was in the middle of killing the Qing clan, these 3 Holy Mother bitches suddenly came out to stop him. This was rather annoying. With this thought, he coldly said, "This is a matter between us. This is between me and the Qing family. It has nothing to do with anyone else. In other words, they'd better not try anything funny." A white-robed man frowned. "When we see injustice on the road, we naturally have to intervene. Otherwise, we wouldn't be disciples of the Holy Mother's School of White Lotus." Bang! Emosure punched another Qing clan clansman's head. "How do you know that this is injustice? Perhaps the Qing clan killed my wife and took my son, so I have an irreconcilable grudge against them. The Qing clan doesn't have the strength right now. If they did, they would have slaughtered their way to our homes and wiped out our entire clan. Our clan wasn't as lucky as the Qing clan and didn't encounter you. Does that mean we deserve to be killed by them? The Qing clan has always been domineering and despotic. Everyone in Yuzhou cursed them behind their backs. You didn't care about them. Now that I've wiped out the Qing clan, I'm enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. Yet you came to stop me. Are you going against the will of the heavens? It was rare for Immortal to say so much. Moreover, the moment he opened his mouth, he asked 3 questions in a row. In the sky, the 3 white-robed men glanced at each other. Finally, the woman spoke. Even if you're right, killing so many people should be enough to vent your anger. So, let's stop. Immortal sneered. So if I stop now, when the Qing family grows up in the future, do you think they will turn around and kill our family and annihilate our entire family? At that time, would they stop midway? When the time comes, will you appear again to stop them? The woman pondered for a while and shook her head. I can't guarantee that. Countless people in the great wide world were suffering. All I can do is to save the suffering in front of me. Immortal couldn't help but laugh. In other words, out of sight, out of mind. When I wanted to kill them for revenge, you saw it, so you wanted to save them. When the time comes, they will turn around and try to kill me. You can't see it, so I deserve to be killed. The woman pondered for a moment and finally spoke again. Anyway, you can't kill anyone today. Immortal laughed again. I've heard that the Holy Mother's school of White Lotus has always been kind to others. I didn't expect you to be so unreasonable. Then, he ignored them and leaped out. In the blink of an eye, he had traveled 1,000 meters. He caught up with a member of the Qing family who was running away. Bang! With one punch, that person was blasted into a bloody mist. When the 2 men in white saw this, their sword-like eyebrows shot up. Brat, do you not understand human language? As he spoke, one of them leaped and directly attacked Immortal from the air. Seeing this, Immortal used the dragon shadow step again. He dodged the attack of the man in white. At the same time, his figure was already 5 kilometers away. With another punch, he killed a member of the Qing family. The man in white was stunned. This brat was so fast. He quickly used his movement technique and instantly chased after Immortal. His movement technique was called the wind-chasing step. When used to the extreme, he could travel 10 kilometers in one step. Soon, he caught up to Immortal. Immortal saw that this guy was not slow either. He used the dragon shadow step again and traveled 20 kilometers in one step. The man in white frowned. This brat's movements were so fast. In the sky, the other man in white saw this and said, the faster the movement technique, the more energy it consumes. Once his energy is exhausted, he won't be able to escape anymore. The 2 of us can surround him and catch up to him soon. After saying that, he also used another kind of footwork to encircle Immortal. However, he soon realized that he was gravely mistaken. Immortal's movements were so fast that the 2 of them despaired. At his fastest, he could travel 50 kilometers in one step. The 2 of them could not catch up to him. And the strangest thing was that such a fast movement technique must consume a lot of energy. However, this brat looked relaxed and did not seem to have any intention of exhausting his energy. The fairy-like saintess candidate in the sky was also frowning at this moment. Senior brothers, let me lend you a helping hand. As she spoke, her level 10 telekinesis spread out. Soon, it enveloped Immortal. Although Immortal's dragon will was strong, it was only level 4, equivalent to the telekinesis of a level 8 telekinesis master. Under the cover of the girl's telekinesis, his movements were somewhat sluggish. Even if he used his energy, his speed was greatly reduced and could only reach 100 meters per second. At this time, the heart of the saintess candidate in the sky was in turmoil. If her level 10 telekinesis master's telekinesis was used, even a level 10 hunter would be imprisoned and unable to move. She could clearly feel that this brat was only a level 5 hunter. Under the imprisonment of her telekinesis, he could still reach a speed of 100 meters per second. This brat's strength was too terrifying, wasn't it? No, it was impossible for him to have such terrifying strength. Could it be that he had some kind of magic treasure? At this time, the 2 men in white also had the same thought in their hearts. Thinking of this, the 3 of them looked at each other. There was a hint of greed in their eyes. Their school of White Lotus had many magic treasures, so under normal circumstances, in the eyes of outsiders, the disciples of the school of White Lotus were not greedy at all. However, if they encountered some rare treasures, they would be tempted. It was just that under normal circumstances, they hid it very well, so outsiders did not know about it at all. But at this time, seeing a level 5 hunter who could use his strength to resist the telekinesis of a level 10 telekinesis master, how could they not be tempted by such a treasure? When the three of them looked at each other, they used the brainwave communicator to communicate. This brat must have some kind of powerful treasure on him. I think so too. He's just a level 5 hunter. We can easily kill him. What if someone else finds out? Easy. We can say that he didn't listen to our advice. After talking to so many people, he still wanted to attack us. We have no choice but to kill him. It can be considered as upholding justice for the heavens. Well, okay. I think it's okay. The three of them had decided, and the way they looked at Immortal changed. Chapter 300. The brainwave communicator was the latest high-tech product from the Flaming Continent. It had just been invented not long ago, and only a few large factions had it. Wearing the brainwave communicator allowed one to communicate directly with their consciousness. There was no need for words or body movements. At this moment, the three fairy-like disciples of the Holy Mother of White Lotus had come to a decision. The way the three of them looked at Immortal instantly changed. One of the white-clothed men pointed at Immortal. Kid, you've killed so many people. We wanted to persuade you to repent, but we didn't expect you to want to kill us too. You're crazy. Immortal's face was filled with question marks. When did I say I wanted to kill you? If I really wanted to kill you, you would have been dead long ago. How would I have the chance to talk here? The other white-clothed man also shouted. You insulted our White Lotus Saintess candidate and insulted our Holy Mother of White Lotus. If we don't kill you today, where will the White Lotus Society's face go? Immortal's face was full of questions again. I just argued with her. That's not arrogant, right? Furthermore, insulting the Holy Mother's school of White Lotus was too outrageous. Even if I wanted to, I would only insult the Holy Mother and the Saintess. I don't have the ability to insult your entire Holy Mother of White Lotus. The fairy-like Saintess candidate also pointed at Immortal at this moment. The three of us will enforce justice on behalf of the heavens today. As she spoke, her telekinesis enveloped Immortal with all her might. Immortal's speed immediately dropped by a notch. He could only reach 50 meters per second. The other two white-clothed men condensed their genetic weapons at the same time. A knife and a sword slashed at Immortal. At this time, how could Immortal not know what they were planning? From their greedy eyes, he knew that they had taken a liking to something on him and wanted to kill him and steal it. He took a look at their memories and found that it was indeed so. Immortal didn't want to have a grudge with the Holy Mother of White Lotus. But now that they had such an idea, he was sorry. Want to kill him and steal his treasure? Let's see who will kill who and who will steal whose treasures. Thinking of this, Immortal's cold eyes flashed with killing intent. With a thought, the sea dragon clone appeared in an instant. In the next moment, the sea dragon clone suddenly pounced from the side like a cheetah. Like a hunting dog pouncing on a rabbit that had jumped into the air, he intercepted a man in white in the air. Crack! A sound that made one's scalp go numb was heard. The man in white was bitten into two and swallowed. Then, the sea dragon clone pounced on another man in white. When the white-clothed man saw this, his expression immediately changed. To be able to swallow a level 1 desolate hunter in one gulp, how strong was this monster? He didn't dare to hesitate at all. He turned around and fled. In the sky, the Saintess candidate's face turned pale with fright. She never expected that a mutated desolate beast would jump out of nowhere and devour one of her senior brothers. Such a mutated desolate beast was not something they could handle. Thinking of this, she hurriedly stepped on her hoverboard shoes, turned around, and was about to fly away. However, it was too late. The sea dragon clone leaped, and this pounce covered a distance of 3,000 meters. It directly swallowed the Saintess candidate into its mouth. The rest of the men in white had already fled 5 kilometers away. But the sea dragon clone opened its huge mouth and let out a sharp, ear-piercing cry. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The man in white suddenly felt a sweetness in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. He fell from the sky. Emosure controlled the sea dragon clone and leaped again. It intercepted the man in white in the air. Then it opened its mouth and swallowed the man in white into its stomach. At this point, the 3 people from the Holy Mother's school of White Lotus had all died tragically in the sea dragon clone's stomach. Emosure's consciousness returned to his main body. At the same time, the sea dragon clone opened its huge mouth and spat out a few items. 3 brainwave communicators. A token. A fist-sized stone. The brainwave communicators could be used by his subordinates in the base. The token was made of jade. There was a woman carved on it, and below was a white lotus. Obviously, this was the token of the Holy Mother's school of White Lotus. From the memories of the 3 people, Emosure already knew that only disciples with extremely high status in the school of White Lotus could have such a token. As long as one had such a token, it was equivalent to the White Lotus school's leader coming in person. Carrying such a token was not only useful in the school of White Lotus, but also in other factions. If one carried such a token, the other factions would not be in a hurry to look at them differently and would help them as much as possible. Of course, such a token had a genetic imprint on it. Only the original owner could activate the imprint on the token to distinguish its authenticity. However, Emosure had the sign-in system. With his understanding of the system, he should be able to sign in a token that he could use. As for the last stone, it was completely translucent and contained a huge amount of energy. Emosure knew from the memories of the Saintess candidate that this was the teleportation stone of the ancient dragon battlefield. Previously, Emosure only knew that one could enter the ancient dragon battlefield after becoming a desolate hunter. In fact, there was another restriction, which was the teleportation stone of the ancient battlefield. It was said that in the beginning, if one wanted to go to the ancient dragon battlefield, one had to become a Grand Desolate Master. A senior mighty figure was the first Grand Desolate Master to return safely from the ancient dragon battlefield. After he returned, based on the situation in the ancient dragon battlefield, he realized that desolate hunters could also go there to train. However, there was a seal restriction, so desolate hunters could not enter at all. Therefore, he spent a lot of effort to create many teleportation stones. Desolate hunters could use these teleportation stones to enter the ancient dragon battlefield. Now that many years had passed, there were not many teleportation stones left. Each one had a sky-high price. He did not expect the 3 of them to come over and give him one. Putting away the other 2 items, Emosure said in his mind, "System, special event sign-in." The system's voice immediately sounded frowny face sign-in successful. Sign-in event, killed the Saintess candidate of the White Lotus School of White Lotus. Sign-in reward, token of the White Lotus School of White Lotus X1. When Emosure heard this notification, the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. It was indeed this reward. Now that he had figured out the system's rewards, he could do some special events to obtain rewards if he wanted something in the future. Following that, Emosure continued to use his fists to kill the Qing family members. Speaking of which, the efficiency of using fists to kill people was really too low. Emosure spent more than 5 hours until the sky turned dark before he slaughtered everyone in the Qing family. Thus, he obtained millions of drops of dragon blood. At this time, it was already late. Emosure first searched the Qing family. He stored all the useful things in his personal warehouse. He also took all the cash. Then, he used the dragon shadow step to travel several kilometers away before stopping. Chapter 301. Emosure was thousands of kilometers away from the Qing family until he reached the beach by the sea. Only then did he stop. After probing with his dragon consciousness, he found that there was no one here. He took out the dragon cave and entered it. However, he had just experienced a massacre and should have needed to rest. However, Emosure did not rest after entering the dragon cave. Instead, he took out the Titan dragon blood he had just obtained and began to consume it. It would take a lot of time to consume hundreds of thousands of drops of Titan dragon blood. After consuming dozens of drops, he felt that the energy in his body had increased a lot. According to his calculations, after consuming this blood, even if he could not become a level 6 hunter, he should not be far from it. In fact, it took Emosure 27 hours to consume the blood this time. While he was consuming the blood, a piece of news quickly spread throughout Yuzhou. In a restaurant in a small town. Have you heard that the Qing family of Yuzhou was wiped out overnight? F***ck, are you kidding me? Are you sure it's the Qing family of Yuzhou? The Qing family that is ranked 84th? I passed by the Qing family of Yuzhou this morning and saw it with my own eyes. How can it be fake? Really? Tell us. At that time, the sun hadn't come out yet. It was just dawn. When I passed by the town where the Qing family was located, I saw a layer of fog everywhere. When I took a closer look, guess what? The rest of the people widened their eyes and asked, "What?" The man lowered his voice and whispered, "That's right. That mist is actually blood red." Everyone's face turned cold. They didn't even dare to breathe. The man continued. I mustered up my courage and came to the Qing family town. I saw that the town was full of dead people. Some had lost their arms and legs, and some had a big hole in their chest. Some even lost their heads. There was blood everywhere. It was just like hell. I was so scared that I wet my pants. In order to prove that what he said was true, the man even lifted his crotch. If you don't believe me, come and smell it. There's also the smell of urine. Everyone waved their hands and cursed, F***ck, who the F***ck is crazy to smell your crotch. The man chuckled and then stopped smiling. He spoke as if he was telling a ghost story. Last time, when I saw the tragic state of Qingjia town, I was so scared that I peed my pants. At that time, his legs were definitely ice cold, as if he had sat down in a bucket of cold water. After regaining my senses, I scrambled out of Qingjia town. Unexpectedly, not only Qingjia town, but also dozens of kilometers away from Qingjia town, there was not a single living person. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts when they heard this. To be able to annihilate the entire Qing clan, that would definitely be an intense battle. The man shook his head and said, "That's right. According to my many years of experience, there were no signs of a fight at all. Basically, those people from the Qing family were all killed in one move. Therefore, this is a one-sided massacre." Everyone looked at each other. Since they can slaughter the Qing family, which is ranked 84th in Yuzhou, there must be a lot of people on the other side, and each of them is definitely not weak. Let's keep our voices down. Those people might be around us right now. Isn't it mealtime? They need to eat too, don't they? When the others heard this, they were shocked. They hurriedly lowered their heads and stopped talking. While eating, they secretly glanced around from time to time. They seemed to be afraid that those people who slaughtered the Qing family would appear. If they knew that it was not a force that slaughtered the Qing family, but only one person, what would they think? However, most of the civilians were overjoyed that the Qing family of Yuzhou was annihilated. Ever since the Qing family of Yuzhou became one of the top 100 forces in Yuzhou, they had done a lot of evil over the years. Now, someone finally acted on behalf of the heavens and destroyed them. The heavens really opened their eyes. In particular, some of the civilians who were harmed by the Qing family of Yuzhou were already secretly grateful to the force that destroyed the Qing family of Yuzhou. In a small mountain village in Yuzhou, a 17 or 18-year-old boy was kneeling in the courtyard at this time. He kowtowed 3 times in a row. He said loudly, "Heavens, you've opened your eyes. Benefactor, thank you for annihilating the Qing family and killing Qing Peng, the beast who took my sister by force. I hope you bless your benefactor and let him live a long life without any disasters in his life. On the Sisui River in Yuzhou, a middle-aged man kowtowed 3 times to the river. The Qing family of Yuzhou is finally annihilated. The Su family's revenge is finally avenged. I don't know which benefactor annihilated the Su family. I only hope that I can find my benefactor in this life and repay his great kindness. At the same time, the major forces in Yuzhou also held an emergency meeting. In a big wooden house in the corpse-running village, which ranked first. There were more than a dozen bony corpse drivers. The leader of the group was none other than their village chief. After a while, he slowly opened his mouth. His voice was like the creaking of a wooden door when it was turned. What do you think of the Qing family being annihilated? The corpse drivers around him pondered for a long time. Then someone spoke. His voice was like the creaking of a wooden door when it was turned. Good job. Another one also made the creaking sound of a wooden door when it was turned. Our position as the first in the corpse-running village is more stable now. The third corpse driver also made the creaking sound of a wooden door when it was turned. If this kind of thing happens a few more times, our corpse-running village will be the most powerful one. The village head pondered for a long time. Then he said with the sound of a wooden door turning. Pay attention to the other forces and see who did it. The Franklin Academy ranked 85th. In the meeting room. The dean said to the teachers, "What do you think about the annihilation of the Qing family?" A female teacher in her 50s pushed up her glasses and had a charming smile on her face. The annihilation of the Qing family means that our Franklin Academy will be 84th. It's a good thing. The other teachers also nodded. Yes, it's indeed a good thing. The Qing family of Yuzhou was unpopular in the first place. There's nothing to say about their annihilation. I don't know which force did what I always wanted to do but didn't have the ability to do. The dean glared at the teacher and then said, although this matter is important, it has nothing to do with us. As you said, it will at most raise our Franklin Academy's ranking by 1 place. The next focus should be on the martial arts tournament that will be held soon. An older teacher next to him reminded him. Dean, although it has nothing to do with us, we should still be careful and find out which force did it. The dean nodded and said to one of the male teachers. Fully activate our intelligence network. We must find out who did it. However, don't alert the enemy. If that force is alerted, it will become a new problem. Chapter 302. Almost all the forces in Yuzhou were discussing the destruction of the Qing family. The results of the discussion were surprisingly consistent. It had nothing to do with them. At the same time, they had to pay attention to the force that destroyed the Qing family. Only the White Lotus School, which was ranked 10th, had some changes. On the sacred mountain of the White Lotus School, there was a mountain that was shaped like a lotus and covered in snow all year round. It was the White Lotus Peak. On the White Lotus Peak, in the White Lotus Cave. In the open space below the high platform, there were a group of high-ranking members of the White Lotus sect, the 12 protectors and the 108 branch leaders. They were all dressed in white. On the high platform, the White Lotus sect's Holy Mother was sitting cross-legged on a White Lotus platform. The White Lotus sect's Holy Mother was dressed in white and looked very beautiful. Although she was over 100 years old, she had a lifespan of 200 years because she had taken good care of herself and was a desolate hunter. Therefore, she looked like she was in her 40s. She looked dignified, elegant, and kind, making people feel close to her. She was like Guanyin descending to the mortal world. She opened her mouth and asked the people below. What do you think about the destruction of the Qing family? Her voice lingered in the air, making those who heard it happy. A branch leader said, although the Qing family of Yuzhou was unjust, they deserved to die. However, not everyone was guilty of the most heinous crimes. It's not right to kill tens of thousands of people in one night. The other sect leader sighed and nodded, saying, that's right. Yes. How many women and children were killed? What did they do wrong? Sigh. Everyone had a compassionate look on their faces. The White Lotus sect's Holy Mother also nodded. Sigh, if the disciples of our sect were present at that time, this disaster would not have happened. However, there are many people in the world who are suffering. We can't save everyone. As long as I do my best to save the people in front of me, I will be merciful. Then, the White Lotus sect's Holy Mother changed the topic. We are going to choose a saintess from our sect. Are all the candidates that I asked the subcult masters to recommend here? Everyone arrived. The saintess candidate of our first branch is here. The saintess candidate of our second branch is here too. The saintess of our 108th branch is here too. After everyone finished reporting, only the patriarch of the 58th branch frowned slightly. Holy Mother, we've lost contact with our 58th branch's saintess candidate. Holy Mother White Lotus asked, what happened? The patriarch of the 58th branch replied, I'm not sure yet. The two disciples I sent to pick up the saintess candidates have also lost contact. I've already sent someone to look for him. Holy Mother White Lotus nodded, if there is news, report it immediately. The 58th sect leader replied, yes, sect master. 2 days later, during the court meeting, Holy Mother White Lotus asked the 58th sect leader again, have you found the saintess candidate? The 58th sect's leader had an ugly expression on his face. Reporting to the Holy Mother, we did not find it. However, there were already some clues. The saintess candidate and my two disciples went missing when they were passing by Qingjia town. The Holy Mother pondered for a moment. So, it's very likely to be related to the extermination of the Qing family? The leader of the 58 branches nodded. There should be a connection. However, the disciples of our cult are good at medical skills, not solving cases. So I've already contacted the detective company to investigate. We saved the son of the chairman of the detective company before, and he said that he would do his best to find out the truth. The Holy Mother White Lotus nodded. That's good. However, the day of the saintess selection is approaching. We must choose the saintess before the martial arts tournament, so that we can show the glory of our Holy Mother White Lotus during the martial arts tournament. You have to hurry up. If you still can't find your saintess candidate before the day of the selection, you will have forfeited. The 58th sect's leader cupped his fists. Yes, Holy Mother. At the same time, Mo Sure had already absorbed all the Titan dragon blood. He could feel that he was not far from being promoted to a level 6 hunter. If he went back to the virtual dragon palace to sign in, he would be able to successfully advance to level 6 in 3 months at most. However, Mo Sure had already seen tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of drops of dragon blood in one night. Naturally, he was not interested in the 8 drops of blood in the virtual dragon palace every night. And this time, he had to go to various places to sign in. Naturally, it was impossible for him to go back so soon. It was said that the place where mechas were produced in Yuzhou was controlled by the military. It was called Steel City. Mo Sure planned to go to Steel City now. After traveling for half a day, he passed by a blood-red area. Mo Sure remembered that this was the place where he had planted the Zero virus last time. The Zero virus had now infected an area with a radius of more than 500 kilometers. And it was still expanding. The Zero virus was different from any virus that existed on the continent. Those people used various methods to try to eliminate the Zero virus, but in the end, they returned without success. In the end, it was a Grand Desolate Master who had lived in seclusion in Yuzhou for a long time who used his tyrannical energy to forcefully kill most of the infected creatures. This alleviated the disaster. Although the entire disaster area was still slowly expanding. But the overly powerful infected creatures inside had already been destroyed. Moreover, the Zero virus inside had been through the hands of the Grand Desolate Master, so its infectivity had decreased a lot. Therefore, they were now treating the disaster area as a training ground. Every day, many cultivators who wanted to become stronger would enter the disaster area to train. When Mo Sure flew over the sky, he investigated the situation of the disaster area. He found that this place was almost under control. This allowed him to have a deeper understanding of the Grand Desolate Master. The system had said that there was no way to control the Zero virus in the flaming continent. But a Grand Desolate Master had controlled it with his own strength. This showed how terrifying the strength of a Grand Desolate Master was. However, Emosure was still a little unconvinced. System, didn't you say that the Zero virus was invincible in the flaming continent? The system's voice replied, frowny face, in theory, it is true, but only when you place the Zero virus on a creature whose strength is at least at the level of a Desolate Master will the power erupt is the strongest. Emosure was a little speechless. Damn, why didn't you say so earlier? The system continued, frowny face, perhaps one day, when you sign into the Zero virus version 2.0 in a laboratory, its power will be even stronger. Even a Grand Desolate Master can't solve it. Emosure nodded. Alright, the final explanation belongs to the system anyway. Whatever you say makes sense. Ignoring the humans who were training below, Emosure used the blood dragon wings to quickly fly over the disaster area. After flying for another half a day, he finally saw a towering city standing on the plains in the distance. Steel City. Chapter 303. Under the blue sky, on a boundless green plain, there was a city of steel. There was not a single piece of concrete or stone in the city. All the buildings and facilities were made of steel. This was the mecha production base of the Yuzhou military, Steel City. If one were to ask which place in Yuzhou was the most heavily guarded, without a doubt, it was Steel City. Steel City was guarded by powerful cultivators sent by the military. It was said that Steel City had tens of thousands of hunters. There were more than 150 hunters. There was only one Grand Desolate Master. There were also several hundred mechas. And this was only the strength on the surface. No one knew just how much strength they were hiding. In short, although the Yuzhou military was not in the top 100 factions, their strength could easily crush any faction. In the past, Emosure would never have come to Steel City. But today was different. When he was still 100 kilometers away from Steel City, Emosure activated his camouflage skill. This was to prevent powerful psychic grandmasters from detecting him. At the same time, he put away his multifunctional watch and other electronic devices to prevent them from being detected by the electronic detection equipment in Steel City. He lay on the grass for about an hour. The sun was already setting in the west. Only then did Emosure quietly set off towards Steel City. Emosure was not very fast. Although he could camouflage and conceal himself, no detection equipment or spiritual detection could detect him. But who knew if there was some sort of invisible defensive measure here? When Emosure was 10 kilometers away from Steel City's walls, his dragon sense detected an invisible barrier not far in front of him. This invisible barrier was not made of spiritual energy. It seemed to be some sort of energy-type defensive weapon. With Emosure's current police force, he would not be able to pass through it using normal methods. But this was not a problem for him. He activated the Great Success Dragon Shadow Step. The Great Success Dragon Shadow Step was not movement, but teleportation. It could be used to pass through walls. Of course, the Great Success Dragon Shadow Step did not require him to teleport 100 kilometers. The teleportation distance could be controlled by Emosure. Emosure teleported a kilometer forward and passed through the invisible wall. The rest of the journey was smooth. They came to the edge of the wall. Beside the wall, in addition to various electronic monitoring and detection devices, there were also some psychic grandmasters and desolate hunters. However, with Emosure's camouflage skill, it was impossible for these telekinesis grandmasters and desolate hunters to discover Emosure. Then, with another teleportation, he leaped over the steel wall. At this moment, the dragon will covered the entire Steel City. The City of Steel was a huge square with sides over 10 kilometers long. The square was divided into many smaller squares by many workshops. According to Emosure's investigation, some of these factories were responsible for producing the core chips of the mechs. Some produced weapon systems. Some produced hydrogen batteries, some produced circuit components. Some were responsible for the final assembly. Mo was secretly delighted. If he signed here, he should be able to obtain quite a number of mechas. Thinking of this, he signed in his mind. System, sign in. Sign in successful. Sign in location, Steel City, sign in reward, 1 giant eagle mecha. Mo frowned slightly. He only got 1 mecha after signing in. System, do you have to be so stingy? What I want is an army of mechas, not 1 or 2 mechas. However, the system didn't answer. Mo was helpless. This opportunity to sign in was wasted. It seemed that he could only wait until after midnight to sign in again. Of course, when he signed in again, it wouldn't be here. After thinking about it, Mo concluded that the reason why he only signed in 1 mecha just now should be because he signed in at the wrong location. According to the detection of the dragon will, he quietly sneaked towards the assembly workshop. Thinking about it, he should be able to sign in a lot of mechas there. After all, there were many finished mechas there. And there were many types and models. There was the Falcon 730 mecha, the Cheetah G50 mecha, and the Little Bird A8 reconnaissance mecha. As long as it was a mecha used by the military, the corresponding type and model could be found here. The ground of this steel city was also made of steel. If he walked normally, his feet would make clanking sounds when he stepped on it. But for cultivators, it wasn't difficult to move forward silently. 5 minutes later, Mo sneaked to the outside of the assembly workshop. According to the previous practice, signing in outside the workshop would give him some rewards related to the things in the workshop. But this opportunity to sign in didn't come easily. For the sake of insurance, Mo decided to enter the workshop. The workshop was still working at this time. Mo climbed on an unmanned trailer, disguised as a box on the trailer, and entered the workshop. Then he disguised himself in a pile of mechas in the corner. He waited quietly until it was past midnight. Mo said in his mind again, "System, sign in." The system's voice suddenly sounded in his mind, frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in location, Steel City Assembly Workshop, sign in reward, a full set of equipment in the assembly workshop. When Mo heard this reward, a smile finally appeared on his face. So that's how it is. The system wasn't too stingy. It planned to reward him with an entire mecha factory. As the saying goes, it's better to teach a man to fish than to give him a fish. If the system only rewarded him with 10, 100, or 1,000 mechas, then if the mechas were damaged or malfunctioned in battle, they could only be abandoned. In the future, if he wants to replenish mechas, he can only spend evolution points to sign in. And it can be imagined that if he wants to sign in a large number of mechas, it will inevitably consume a lot of evolution points. On the contrary, if he has a mecha factory, that way, they would be able to produce an endless stream of mechas. It's just that he can only sign in 1 factory in 1 night. If he wants to sign in the entire mecha factory, it will probably take about a month. But there is nothing to hesitate about. After a month, he will have the entire mecha factory. What else is there to say? After signing in, Mo entered his dragon cave to rest. The next night, after midnight, Mo appeared again. This time, he quietly sneaked into the chip production workshop. System, sign in. Sign in successful. Sign in location, Steel City Chip Production Workshop, sign in reward, a full set of equipment in the chip production workshop. On the 3rd night, Mo sneaked into the power system workshop. System, sign in. Sign in successful. Sign in location, Steel City Power System Workshop, sign in reward, a full set of equipment in the power system workshop. Chapter 304. Steel City was the most heavily guarded place in Yuzhou. In the 200 years since its establishment, no one had been able to sneak in. Everyone who tried to sneak in ended up with miserable fates. However, Mo camouflage skill was heaven-defying. Not only could he avoid all electronic equipment and all kinds of light detection, he could also avoid the detection of psychic grandmasters. Thus, Mo had been signing in here for 5 days without anyone noticing. Moreover, he only appeared for a short while every day when he was signing in. The rest of the time, he was hiding in the Dragon Cave. The Dragon Cave was equivalent to a space independent of this world. After he entered the Dragon Cave, all his aura completely disappeared. Those detection equipment and cultivators were even more unable to detect Emosher's existence. And in these 5 days, the 3 Grand Desolate Masters in Steel City kept feeling that something was wrong. It was just a very faint feeling. It was like when you returned home and someone sneaked in. Although you couldn't see it, you could always feel that something was wrong. However, when the 3 Grand Desolate Masters carefully investigated, they couldn't find anything. Finally, after 5 days, the 3 Grand Desolate Masters finally met. One of them asked, "Have you guys felt that something was strange recently?" The other 2 nodded. "You also have this feeling?" "In short, I just feel that something is strange. As for what is strange, I can't say. It's just a kind of feeling." The other 2 nodded. "Yes, we also have this feeling. It's a feeling we've never had before." After a moment of silence, one of the Grand Desolate Masters said, "Why don't we organize people to conduct a carpet search of the entire city?" The other 2 pondered for a moment before nodding. "Yes, I think that's fine." "Okay." Thus, on the 6th day, Steel City organized more than 3,000 people and more than 1,000 reconnaissance mechas. With all kinds of high-tech equipment, they spent more than 5 hours conducting a comprehensive and meticulous search of the entire Steel City without leaving any blind spots. However, the result was that they didn't find anything. After the search, the 3 Grand Desolate Masters met again. "You didn't find anything?" "Yes." "Strange, where is that strange feeling coming from?" After discussing for a while, they still couldn't come to a conclusion. In the end, the 3 of them could only remind each other to be careful for the time being. For the next half a month, it was still peaceful. Although the 3 of them still felt strange every day, Emosher's camouflage skill was simply too heaven-defying. No matter how they scanned, probed, or searched, they were unable to discover Emosher's existence. In the end, after more than 40 days, Emosher finally signed in a full set of mecha factories. After that, he returned to Hunting Island 1. With a single move of his dragon will, all the infected creatures within a square area of 10 kilometers were wiped out. Then, with a thought, he took out a full set of equipment from the assembly workshop. He had originally thought that the entire set of equipment was just equipment and not a factory. However, he did not expect that when he took out the full set of equipment, it also came with a brand new factory. Everyone's eyes widened when they saw a factory building appear out of thin air in the open space. When they entered the factory, they saw that all the equipment needed to assemble a mech was available. Everyone was shocked and started to discuss. "Mr. Emo is getting stronger and stronger. He can even make factories and all the equipment appear out of thin air. Is this what it means to be a god? Mr. Emo is really beyond our imagination. What do you guys think this equipment is used for? Who knows?" In short, Mr. Mo's intentions are not something we can speculate about. Mo sure took a closer look at the factory building. He found that not only was all the equipment produced by the system brand new, but every set of equipment was much more advanced than the equipment in Steel City. In Steel City's factory building, smart equipment only accounted for 50%. And in the factory building produced by the system, smart equipment accounted for about 70%. This not only greatly reduced the labor force, but also reduced the difficulty of operating a lot of equipment. Next, Mo sure took out all the factories. Therefore, a city that looked exactly the same as Steel City appeared on Hunting Island number 1. Although it was a replica of Steel City, it was definitely an upgraded version of Steel City. Next, Mo sure took out 5 large packages of manuals from his backpack. He said to Guojutao, "Here are the manuals for all the equipment." Guojutao opened one of the packages and took out a manual. After reading it for a moment, his eyes widened and he asked in disbelief, "Mr. Mo, these are mecha factories?" Mo sure nodded, "Yes." Everyone was pleasantly surprised when they heard this. Wow, an entire mecha factory. Then we can make tens of thousands of mechas in the future, right? That's awesome. I really don't know how Mr. Mo got an entire mecha factory. Mo sure asked Guo Jutao next to him, how long can the super batteries we stored last if we use them for the entire mecha factory? Guo Jutao looked at the 30 or so huge factories and said, if it's all for the use of these equipment, I estimate that it can last for 1 to 3 months. However, we have more than 20 mechas now. We can send them to catch other infected creatures and use them to make super batteries. Mo sure nodded in satisfaction when he heard this. Yes, not bad. I'm going out for a while. During this time, you guys just need to develop steadily. Don't be greedy. Guo Jutao replied, yes, Mr. Mo. The reason why Mo sure wanted to go out was because he planned to go to the martial arts tournament. He didn't care about the rankings. What he cared about the most was the rewards of the martial arts tournament. According to the information obtained from the memory of the Saintess candidate of the White Lotus Society, the rewards of this martial arts tournament were very generous. In addition to a large amount of money and weapons, there were 2 more important things. It was also an incomplete dragon vein. The other was a map of the ancient battlefield of the Great Dragons. If he could obtain the map of the ancient battlefield of the Great Dragons, his safety in the ancient battlefield of the Great Dragons would be greatly improved. As for the broken dragon vein, it was said that a senior mighty person brought it back from the ancient battlefield of the Great Dragons 1,000 years ago. It contained a huge amount of energy. According to that senior, as long as one understood the secrets of the dragon vein or repaired the broken dragon vein, one would be able to obtain unimaginable benefits. Chapter 305. Whoever could comprehend the mystery of the incomplete dragon vein or make up for the incomplete dragon vein would be able to obtain a great opportunity. However, that senior spent 500 years and still couldn't figure out the mystery. Now that another 500 years had passed, the senior's descendants couldn't figure out the mystery either. Therefore, they took out the incomplete dragon vein. The dragon vein would belong to whoever could unravel the mystery behind it. As long as the person who figured out the mystery could take care of the senior's descendants in the future. This was also the senior's last words 500 years ago. Now, the senior's descendants' family was in decline. According to the senior's last words, they contributed the incomplete dragon vein as a reward for this martial arts tournament. An incomplete dragon vein and a map of the ancient dragon battlefield. Mo sure was determined to get this. According to past practice, the participants of the martial arts tournament must be the top 100 forces in Yuzhou. Moreover, there must be a desolate hunter among the forces. The first hunting island couldn't even be ranked in the top 100 of Yuzhou. But now, Mo sure had absolute confidence. Even without the sea dragon avatar, the strength of their first hunting island could definitely crush many of the top 100 forces. However, Mo sure still felt that he couldn't be too careless. Therefore, he called the Night King over. He asked, how is the growth of the Night Ghost Spirit seeds? The Night King replied. Those 10 Night Ghost Spirit seeds are about to mature. I estimate that they will be harvested in half a month at the latest. Mo sure nodded in satisfaction. The martial arts tournament was held more than 20 days later. The timing was just right. Therefore, Mo sure stayed on the first hunting island for a few more days. During these days, he didn't do anything else. The only thing he did was to spend tens of billions of evolution points to sign in the Night Ghost Spirit seeds. In half a month, he signed in 150 Night Ghost Spirit seeds. Then, he asked the Night King to transform some infected creatures into night ghosts and plant the Night Ghost Spirit seeds in their bodies. On the 15th day, the 10 Night Ghost Spirits had all matured. The Night King opened the corpses of the 10 Night Ghosts and took out the Night Ghost Spirits. Mo sure had already asked Guo Jutao to choose 10 people with extremely poor talent who had no hope of becoming a desolate hunter in their lives. Help them consume the Night Ghost Spirit. 3 days later, all 10 of them had been promoted from mere corpse hunters to desolate hunters. This caused the other people who had been working hard to cultivate to be extremely envious. Who would be willing to train so hard if they could become a hunter in one step? However, when Emosure told them that if they consumed the night ghost spirit, they would not be able to advance any further, one by one, they retreated. However, with these 10 people in the base, it was equivalent to having a total of 12 desolate hunters in the base. With so many high-end battle forces, number 1 Hunting Island could be ranked in the top 50 among all the forces in Yuzhou province. If all the mechas on the first Hunting Island were included, it would be no problem for them to rank in the top 30. However, Emosure did not plan to reveal his mecha when he went to the martial arts tournament. 2 days later, Emosure waited for the newly promoted desolate hunters to stabilize their cultivation before leading them to the location of the martial battle assembly. The martial arts competition was held at Nether Mountain in Yuzhou. The Netherworld Mountain sounded like a very ominous place. In fact, it was indeed a very ominous place. The Netherworld Mountain was shrouded in miasma all year round. Being able to enter the Netherworld Mountain was enough to show that this force was very strong. The reason why the martial arts tournament was set up here was to isolate those idle people who came to watch the show from the outside. After all, there were 100 forces. Even if each force only sent 100 disciples, there would be tens of thousands of people. If those who came to watch the fun were added, wouldn't it be a mess? Moreover, the reward this time was very important. Naturally, it was impossible to let those who were not involved watch. Emosure did not bring many people to the Netherworld Mountain this time. Guo Jitao stayed at the base to guard it. Emosure brought the remaining 11 desolate hunters, Emma, her daughter, Happy, and the little monk. Happy had awakened the ability of a prophet. Although on the surface, she did not look like an ordinary person at all. In fact, her physique had far surpassed that of an ordinary person. She could totally deal with the miasma. As a member of the Blood Clan, Emma's physique was far stronger than that of an ordinary desolate hunter. There was no problem for her to deal with the miasma. As for Emma's son, with Emosure's recovery potion in his body, he would be fine. The group flew across the sea and arrived at a city near the sea. Then, through the teleportation device, they were teleported to Luo City, which was more than 300 kilometers away from the Netherworld Mountain. They planned to rest here for the night and head to the Netherworld Mountain tomorrow. Luo City could be considered a city that was neither big nor small. Although it was not the most bustling city in Yuzhou, it was quite unique. That afternoon, Emosure planned to take Happy out for a walk. After all, Happy had been in the flaming beginning continent for so long and had never come out. Emma also followed with her son. She hoped that her son could see more of the outside world. Perhaps this could stimulate her son's brain and let him recover sooner. As for the other desolate hunters and the little monk, they did not come out. Guo Jitao had told them before that when they came out with Mr. Mo this time, everything else was secondary and should be put aside first. They would talk about other things after Mr. Mo obtained a good ranking. Not long after, Emosure, Happy, and Emma came to the street. It was evening. The strange neon lights on the street were already flashing. There were many 3D advertisements that were dazzling to the eyes. On the street, maglev cars could occasionally be seen. In the flaming beginning continent, maglev technology and autopilot technology had long been mature. Some older people would take maglev cars when they went out. Happy had only seen this in recorded videos before. It was the first time he saw it with his own eyes. She stared with her big eyes, like a curious baby looking at this grotesque and variegated world that was full of novelty. She grabbed Emosure's arm tightly and seemed a little nervous. But she could not help but be curious and kept looking around. Although Emma was not as curious as Happy, it was still the first time she had seen it. Her eyes were also constantly looking around. When the four of them passed through the street, many people turned to look at them. Of course, those people's target was not Emosure and Emma's son. It was Emma and Happy. They were too good-looking. Those men were secretly guessing in their hearts. What's the relationship between this kid and those two women? In the end, they all came to a conclusion in their hearts. 2 good cabbages were taken by a pig, and he even took out a small cabbage. F***ck. Mosher felt the malicious gazes of the crowd and straightened his body with a smile. He stretched out his right hand and hugged Happy's waist. I like it when you don't like me but can't do anything to me. Chapter 306. Mosher brought Happy, Emma, and her son to continue shopping. When they saw some beautiful clothes in some shops, Mosher pointed at them and asked Happy, do you like them? Although Happy was not a materialistic girl, they had been together for so long, and he had not bought her a single piece of clothing. It was too unreasonable. Although the style of clothes in Flaming Beginning was different from that on Earth, there were also clothes that were similar to ancient costumes. They were all very exquisite. Happy's gaze swept past the ancient clothes, and a hint of surprise appeared in her eyes. But then she shook her head. Mosher was puzzled. You don't like them? Then let's go to another shop. Soon, they came to another clothing shop. This one was bigger than the previous one, and there were more styles of clothes. Mosher said, see if there's anything you like. Happy still shook her head. Mosher was puzzled. He felt that many of the clothes here were very beautiful. Was Happy's taste so high? Emma, who was beside him, answered his question. She's afraid that you'll spend money and doesn't want to give you any trouble. Mosher came to a realization and immediately said to Happy, Happy, choose. Don't worry. I'm not short of money now. Emma dragged Happy along and went to try on the clothes. She tried on the clothes for half an hour. Half an hour later, Emma came out with two of the clothes with Happy. One was like an ancient costume, and the other was closer to modern clothes. Emma said, Happy, tell me which one you like, and I'll buy it. Mosher was puzzled. There are so many clothes, and she only likes two. Emma smiled. Do you really not understand, Happy, or are you pretending not to understand? She's just afraid that you'll spend money. Mosher shook his head. I said that I'm not short of money. How about this? Buy all the clothes she tried on just now as long as they fit. When the female shop assistant heard this, she immediately smiled like a blooming flower. Sir, you're so generous. Generous people usually have good luck. No wonder you have such a beautiful girlfriend. Emma nodded at Mosher. Yes, that's right. Mosher seemed to have thought of something and said to Emma, oh, right. By the way, pick some for yourself and your son. Take whatever you like. We don't lack money. Hearing this, Emma nodded gratefully. Thank you, master. What she was grateful for was not Mosher letting her buy clothes for herself, but for buying clothes for her son. All her thoughts were on her son. Whoever treated her son well, she would naturally treat them differently. Upon hearing Mosher's words, the shop assistant's eyes twinkled like stars in the clear night sky. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. You are so generous. Another hour or so later, Emma chose more than 50 sets of clothes for Happy. She also chose more than 30 sets of clothes for her son. She had also chosen more than 20 sets for herself. Mosher said to the clerk. Pack them all up and send them to the hotel. The shop assistant was so happy that his face was about to split open. Yes, sir. Don't worry. At that moment, Happy pointed at Mosher and gestured with his hands. Brother Mo, I haven't bought it for you yet. Emma also found it strange. Master, you're not buying. Mosher shook his head. I already bought a few the last time I went out. Mosher didn't care much about external items like clothes. It was fine as long as he had something to wear. There was no need to be so particular. If he was too particular about external items, he would only end up being physically and mentally exhausted. Emma thought about it and helped Mosher pick a few clothes with Happy. The female shop assistant finally understood what happiness was today. She sold the clothes one by one, and money went into her pocket. This was happiness. After buying the clothes, Mosher and the others continued to wander around the streets. Other than the bizarre streets in Luoyang City, the other half of the streets were the poor district. The poor district was the complete opposite of the rich district. There were no colorful neon lights. There were no high-tech equipment either. Low and messy buildings, crowded and narrow alleyways. There were flickering street lights. It looked somewhat similar to many urban villages before the apocalypse on Earth. Emosher and the others were also a little surprised by this. They were in the same city, but it was like two different worlds. Around 11 o'clock at night, the few of them ate something at the night market and planned to return to the hotel. In order to take a shortcut, Emosher led the three of them through an alley in the slums. The alley was very long, more than 50 meters long. The alley was very dark, and the only street light bulb was broken. Emma's son was a little scared and held Emma's hand tightly. Happy also held Emosher's hand tightly. Just as they reached the middle of the alley, Emosher stopped in his tracks. He looked up and saw three people appear at the entrance of the alley in front of him. At the same time, three people also appeared at the entrance of the alley behind them. In the air above the alley, there were also three people on hoverboards. Emosher looked over with the blood dragon's eye. He saw that among the 9 people, the strongest was a level 5 hunter. The rest of the people were basically level 3 hunters and below. The level 5 hunter slowly approached Emosher while speaking to the other hunters. Brothers, catch those 2 women and sell them to the Huichun brothel. With their beauty, they can definitely be sold for a good price. Someone said, Boss, it's a pity to sell these 2 beauties to the Huichun brothel. Why don't we keep them for ourselves? Hee hee. The level 5 hunter glared at that person and scolded, You're such a good for nothing. You good for nothing. How many times have I told you that we're not lustful? We're just porters of beauty. That person quickly replied, Yes, yes. Right, right, right. Boss is right. Another person said, Boss said that there's a knife above the word lust. You'd better remember. Yes, yes, yes. Boss is right. Look at my brain. As the man spoke, he slapped himself in the face. Soon, the 9 people surrounded Emosher and the other 3. Boy, I'll give you a choice now. You can either obediently hand over your 2 women and leave. Or you can fight to the death and end up dead on the street. But your 2 women will still be taken away by me. In the face of such people, Emosher was too lazy to talk to them. He said to Happy beside him, Happy, cover your eyes. Because what happens next will be very bloody and violent. Hearing this, Happy obediently closed his eyes. Emma also quickly covered her son's eyes. When the 9 people heard Emosher say this, they also understood what Emosher meant. One of them pointed at the tip of Emosher's nose and scolded, Boy, is there something wrong with your brain? Do you really think that you can fight the 9 of us alone? Before he finished speaking, his right hand that was pointing at Emosher turned 180 degrees back and stuck tightly to his forearm. Chapter 307. Before that person could finish his words, Emosher suddenly made his move. He grabbed that person's right hand and bent it backward. Gotcha! That person's entire right hand was bent backward at an 80-degree angle. It was actually stuck to his forearm. Ah, that person instantly let out a scream like a pig being slaughtered. When the rest of the people saw this, their expressions changed. The level 5 hunter and the lead hurriedly shouted, Attack together. Let's kill him together. The rest of the people responded and pounced toward Emosher. However, before they could touch Emosher, pooh, another muffled sound was heard. Taking a closer look, they saw that Emosher's fist had stopped at the previous person's head. His fist was already dyed red with blood. As for that person's head, it had already exploded. When the rest of the people saw this, they all stopped attacking Emosher. The person who had just died was a level 3 hunter. And this kid did not use any energy. He only used his physical strength to explode that person's head with one punch. In that case, this kid's strength was simply ridiculously strong. Thinking of this, the 8 of them hurriedly condensed their genetic weapons. Mo sure did not care about their genetic weapons at all. It was still a fist. He dodged one person's genetic weapon. He punched toward the joint between that person's genetic weapon and his shoulder. Kacha, that person's genetic weapon, along with his entire right arm, fell to the ground. His entire shoulder drooped down, looking like a piece of flesh that was about to fall off from his body. Then, another kick. Bang, another kick landed on the head of another person. That person's head flew out. It smashed into the wall beside him, smashing into pieces. When the rest of the people, including the level 5 hunter, saw this, they hurriedly turned around and wanted to escape. However, in front of Mo sure's dragon shadow steps, all attempts to escape were futile. Bang, poo, bang, poo. Every time a punch landed on a person's head, there would be the sound of a rubber ball being smashed to the point of leaking air. Very quickly, the rest of the 8 people had died under Mo sure's fists. Only the level 5 hunter, who was the strongest, was left. At this time, the level 5 hunter was in a panic. He saw that Mo sure had already caught up to him. He hurriedly said, "Wait a minute, I'm from the 702 mercenary group." Do you know the 702 mercenary group? Perhaps you've not heard about it before. However, after Qin clan in Yuzhou province died, the ranking of those forces behind them would rise by 1 rank. 702 mercenary group, previously ranked 101st. This time, they will be ranked 100th. If you let me go, you'll be on good terms with 702 mercenary group. To be able to befriend such a force is definitely a good thing for you. Mo sure chuckled and shook his head. 702. I'm F** King 502. Then, he raised his sandbag-sized fist and was about to continue punching. When that person saw this, his expression changed greatly. His eyes were filled with terror as he screamed hysterically, "Brotherly, you've been killed. No, you can't kill me. If you dare to kill me, 702 mercenary group won't let you go." Mo sure was speechless at this idiot. He was about to die, yet he was still threatening him. He really didn't know what kind of sin his parents had committed in the past to give birth to such a thing. A force ranked around 100th was actually selling women. He punched out. Puff, the level 5 hunter's head also exploded. With Mo sure's current strength, even if he didn't use energy, dealing with a level 5 hunter was like playing with a toy. After killing this person, Mo sure took Happy, Emma, and the others back to the hotel. He took a shower and lay on the bed. Mo sure then checked the memories that he had just plundered. From these people's memories, Mo sure knew that 702 mercenary group was actually not a proper mercenary group at all. A normal mercenary group would basically only accept some tasks such as escorting, searching for lost items, hunting wild beasts, and so on. But 702 mercenary group, as long as you paid them, they would accept any kind of task. Big tasks such as robbing a fighter jet, small tasks such as helping an old lady cross the road. No matter if it was a good or bad thing, no matter big or small, as long as there was money to be made, there was nothing they couldn't accept. So the entire 702 mercenary group was in a very strange position in Yuzhou. Whether it was good or bad, they both loved and hated it. They hated it because they did things without a bottom line and often did things that violated human relations and offended the heavens. They loved it because no matter which force, there were some things that couldn't be exposed. It was not good for them to personally deal with these things, so they secretly let 702 mercenary group do it. So although almost no force liked 702 mercenary group, no force would be an enemy of 702 mercenary group. Now the 84th ranked Yuzhou Qing family was destroyed. 702 mercenary group wanted to take this opportunity to become one of the top 100 forces in Yuzhou. After all, if they became one of the top 100 forces in Yuzhou, 702 mercenary group's fame would be much greater. At that time, their performance would also be better. Seeing this, Mo sure took a sip of tea and smiled. It turned out to be a competitor. From the memories of those people, he already knew the strength of 702 mercenary group. It seemed that this competitor didn't have much competitiveness. This was the best, it would save trouble. Early the next morning, Emosher and the others began to set off for Yuming Mountain. Not long after they set off. In another luxurious hotel, in a high-end suite. A middle-aged man with a mustache and a scar on his face frowned slightly. His multifunctional watch was turned on, and there were 5 people's faces on it. These 5 people were the 5 captains of 702 mercenary group. Haven't you found that disappointing son yet? The leader's voice was a little cold. They were supposed to set off for Yuming Mountain this morning. But they still couldn't find his son. Luo City was not peaceful now. Almost all the big forces going to Yuming Mountain would stay here. That disappointing son of his had loved to stir up trouble since he was young. If he caused trouble here, it would be troublesome. If he provoked some small forces, it would be fine. At most, they could destroy that force. But if he provoked a big force ranked in the top 100, it would be really troublesome. The 5 captains projected by the multifunctional watch all shook their heads. Not found yet. Not found yet. I don't have any clues here. But one of the captains said. My people found, the young leader's, body. What? Say it again. The leader of 702 mercenary group felt weak all over. In an instant, he seemed to have lost all strength and energy in his body. The captain paused for a moment, and finally spoke again. We found the corpses of the young commander and his 8 followers in an alley. It seemed that they were killed by an extremely powerful master. Because almost everyone's head was blown up.